Welcome back to another edition of the Rodcast, Monday edition of the Rodcast. Thank you guys for joining us. We are jam-packed. Lots to get into on the show. The NBA play-ins are set. Most of the playoffs are set, so we'll get into some of that. Rodney Terry heating up. He is on fire right now in the transfer portal. 3 players within hours announced they are committing to the Longhorns men's basketball team via the transfer portal. We'll start out talking about that, get into him reshaping that roster already. Also, of course, the Masters. Scottie Scheffler wins his second Masters in 3 years. We'll discuss that and talk about his ascension to dominance in golf, really, in period, in sports. You can talk about that. That's something we'll get into, kind of the overall macro about the legacy of Scottie Scheffler. I know it's crazy to start talking about that already, but that's just how dominant he has been so far. So we'll get into that. Also, we'll go behind the burnt orange curtain. We'll do that next segment, and we'll talk about the scrimmage they had over the weekend, the spring scrimmage, the second and the last scrimmage before the spring game. There's a lot to talk about, so a lot of news, notes, and nuggets coming out of that. So we'll pool all the other great sources and all the other great entities that cover Texas football, a lot of different sources from around the Austin area. So we'll get into that and talk about the scrimmage from over the weekend. There's also some Cowboys news, notes, and nuggets to get to. Raj rant of the day. I'll try to one more time. All right. I'll once again make my case for Wemby to win Defensive Player of the Year, and then I'm done. I'm done with it because they're going to get to determining the awards here soon enough. So my last case for Wemby as Defensive Player of the Year. We'll do that in Rod's rant. So we got a lot to get into, but let's not waste any time. Without further ado, let's introduce the real MVP. He's one of the hardest working members of the ARN family, also our resident Spurs fan, but also he's got a hustler spirit, period. I don't know what he's paid, but I'm pretty damn sure this man is underpaid. Ain't no 401k for this hustler, and he's a hustle man of many talents. He's my friend, co-host, and neighbor. The Idealionaire is Patrick Davis, y'all. What's going on, Patrick? How you doing, brother?
I'm doing good on a Monday. Glad to be back rock and rolling with you here on a Monday. Had a good weekend. Sure. It was Lou's found day, my dog's found day. Hey. I found him 8 years that I've had him now, so celebrate that with a big meal and steak and shrimp and everything, and then he had a very good night's sleep after he was very tired. Very tired after that meal. Getting a lot of steak from my boy. So it was a good weekend.
Shout out to Lou.
Let me introduce my co-host. He is a proud alumni of DBU. He's got more papers than Dunder Mifflin and watches more film than Siskel and Ebert. He is the new Rod father of Austin Sports Radio, Mr. Rod Babers.
Yes, man, I appreciate that intro as always. And shout out to Lou. Yes, Lou at one time, the unofficial mascot of Ball Don't Lie, but we can make him an unofficial mascot for the broadcast too. We can do that too. Love Lou, man. So happy Found Day to Lou. Didn't realize that. All right, we got a lot to get into on the show, of course, and you can be a part of it. Matter of fact, you're the most important part of it. So please do hit us up. The text line 512-447-3776. We're also want to get into the big fat poll of the day that'll come up at 6:45. We'll also get into the musically themed day of the week. Always, my man Patrick, always a good time with that. We appreciate his creativity and his energy. Also, can't wait to get his thoughts about what Rodney Terry is doing with his Texas basketball roster. I know he's such a hoops fan, so I have a lot to say about that. And I know he's excited, of course, about the NBA playoffs. They are set, but before the playoffs are actually set, you got to get through the play-ins, and those will start up tomorrow, actually. So we'll talk about the play-ins, and honestly, this may be best case scenario for the NBA. Your play-ins are sexy. You got superstars in your play-ins. This was the whole point of the play-ins, because you wanted another opportunity for your superstars to get into the playoffs, because a playoffs without all the superstars, well, you just lack all the storylines and the star power. And best case scenario, you have your superstars actually advancing into the playoffs and making some runs, but the play-ins are actually sexy because you got star power in the play-ins.
The Western play-ins are sexy.
Well, you got some in the East. You got Joel Embiid.
You have Joel Embiid, but that's not good. They're going to dominate both these games.
You got a Hemi Butler. You got Hemi.
You do. I will say the 9th and 10th seed in the Eastern Conference does not need to be in the playoffs.
That's fair, but I'm just saying. But you're right. I don't disagree with that. But I'm saying the point of it, Adam Silver, he wanted the stars.
He did want the stars.
Milk the ratings as much as possible.
He did. But the 7 and 8, and so I agree with you. The 9 and 10 though, or the 9 and 10.
Right. I don't disagree.
Did not need to be in the East. That was it was just funny because if you look in the West, you go, man, this is why the play-ins here is because it would be a shame
Yeah.
to eliminate one of these teams in the 9th and the 10th spot. This is exactly why we have the plan. And then you look at the East, you're like, no, 8 teams. 8 teams seems like enough. Doesn't feel like we need to encourage the Bulls and Hawks. And it's like one of those things for them that I don't think
you got Trae Young too. Yeah.
You got Trae Young, but that's how bad have they been this season. And I know Trae Young got hurt and DeJounte was hurt, but they have been a really bad team. And the Bulls, everyone's been hurt all season long. Neither team really needs to be it. But I'll watch.
No, you're right.
I'll watch. But yeah, that one I feel is a little bit more. The Western Conference one is anyone could come out of that.
It's sexy. Yeah, because the Lakers could make a run and the Warriors could, they're the Warriors.
Yeah.
So no, I'm with you. Okay. Yeah, no, you're right. I agree. I was just talking about star power.
Yes.
But in terms of you looking at teams and how good they are, yeah, the East, honestly, there's no drama in the East, or at least there shouldn't be. There shouldn't be any drama.
No,
there may be some drama in the West, but Denver is still the favorite. But there shouldn't be any drama in East the way that Boston has dominated.
There will be drama in the fact of there is going to be some super disappointed teams like Milwaukee, who made the big trade for Dame Lillard to get him over this hump and be able to compete, and they got worse this season objectively. And so there's going to be some people there that are a little upset, and the whole, are we going to keep Giannis by getting Dame Lillard? Is that going to keep Giannis, or does now he think, well, man, I don't want to be. Look at what this. Like, I can't even win with these guys. You can't build me a team.
That'd be wild if Giannis decided to make a move. But
he's re-signed, so he'd have to demand a trade at this point. He's probably not going to do that. But that was the point of signing Dame Lillard was
to keep
Giannis happy, and it has not necessarily worked out that way.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. We'll get into the NBA because next hour we'll dive into the NBA and the play-ins, and also, like I said, my Raj rant today will also be NBA related. So we'll talk a lot of hoops, but we're also talking hoops because we'll go to the college game. Rodney Terry is on fire right now via the transfer portal, 3 different commitments. So he's wasting no time reshaping this roster. We'll get into that. We'll also get my man Patrick with the Horn headlines here momentarily to update us, inform us, educate us on the big headlines of the day. And then we'll also talk about, of course, the big news, Scottie Scheffler winning his 2nd Masters and doing it in somewhat convincing fashion. That's his dominance right now in golf. He does not have currently a peer, right, in what he is doing. So we'll talk about that and give you some of the freaky, crazy stats of the ascension of Scottie Scheffler. But before we do that, let's get into the Horn headlines first. Get my man Patrick to update us, inform us, educate us on all the big headlines of the day. Patrick, will you please do us a service with the Horn headlines?
All right, your Horn headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. Texas baseball got a home run from D. Kennedy on Saturday in the 9th inning, and then rode an 8-run 9th inning on Sunday to get a much-needed series win over Houston, 2-1 after a slow start on Friday. They'll be back in action on Tuesday against UT Rio Grande Valley, and Texas softball swept their series against Baylor behind Reese Atwood's 10 RBIs. They will face Kansas next weekend. In golf, Scottie Scheffler maintained his dominance of the game with a 4-stroke victory at the Masters. This is Scheffler's 2nd Masters victory and his 3rd tour win of the year. Scheffler now has had a top 10 finish of 8 of the 9 events he has played this season. Texas men's basketball was busy yesterday, bringing in 3 transfers as they rebuild the roster for next season. Texas landed 2 players from Indiana State, forward Jason Kent, who averaged 13.5 points and 8.1 rebounds per game, and guard Julian Larry, who shot 46% from 3 last season. Longhorns also grabbed 6'6" guard Traymon Mark from Arkansas, who's a dynamic player on both ends of the court. In the NBA, the playoff seeding and play-in tournament are set. The Mavericks finished the season with the 5 seed and will be taking on the Clippers starting next weekend, while the Thunder were able to take the number 1 seed in the West after a year after failing to make the playoffs after losing to the Timberwolves in the play-in. The Rockets finished their season at 41-41, a marked improvement over their 22-60 season a year ago. And the Spurs finished at 22-60 for the 2nd season in a row and will have the 5th best odds in the draft lottery. And in Major League Baseball, the Astros were able to take the series with the Rangers 2-1 after a disastrous start, giving up 12 runs in the first 6 innings. Altuve and Tucker both had multi-home run games, and the Astros were finally able to win their first series of the season. The Astros are back in action tonight facing the Braves, while the Rangers begin their series with the Tigers, with pregame beginning at 5 p.m. right here on the Horn. And that is your Horn headlines.
All right, thank you, Patrick, for the horn headlines. We appreciate those. And yes, I did forget about the Rangers report. Also got a Rangers report coming up for you a little bit later on in the show. In the 9 o'clock, we'll get to a Rangers report, and I'm sure Rangers fans are a little disappointed after losing that series to the Astros. Astros, as you pointed out, first series win of the season. And yeah, I don't even know. You're crazy enough. You look back now; those two teams now played. Well, they played
Yeah.
7 games, and now the Astros have the 4-3 advantage. I have no idea how that happened. I'm not even going to brag about it because I don't even know how it happened. I have no idea how that is the case
Oh,
because the Rangers are definitely a better team. So I don't even know how that's the case. I have no idea. We'll get into that more in the Rangers report coming up a little bit later on the show. Okay, let's talk about Scotty Scheffler and his dominance because it is just that. So there are a couple of stats I want to bring up here. First of all, we haven't gotten the ratings in the total ratings for the Masters over the weekend and for the last day of the Masters. So I'm not sure about that, but we were talking about this on Thursday when the Masters started, and I pointed out they had so many great storylines that were still alive, including Tiger Woods, and that was going to drive the ratings up because you just had really good storylines. You had, the live thing was still alive at the time. You had Tiger, you had Rory. The opening round of the Masters, because of those storylines, averaged 3.2 million viewers on ESPN, largest audience in 9 years. And with Tiger making the cut, the 2-day average viewership for the Masters for the first 2 years was the highest since 2018. Averaged 3.4 million viewers for rounds 1 and 2 on Thursday and Friday. The second round audience of 3.6 was up 69% from last year's kind of rain delayed second round. So Tiger still can put butts in seats. But Scotty Scheffler is the best golfer in the world, and he's on a Tiger-like run, a Tiger-esque like run here. How about this little stat? Two things. The Masters champion now, Scotty Scheffler, he has 3 wins in 2024 and 0 rounds over par.
jeez.
I mean,
He's just
guys,
playing, and I mean, even when
it's
he's
freaky.
even when he starts to makes a bad shot or something, he immediately rebounds on it. Just does not let it affect him. Does not seem to get into a bad headspace in any of this. It's crazy to watch him just continue to having start a round off and then suddenly, even if it's not going well, all of a sudden turn it around. Or if he has a good round going and it starts to go downhill, he just picks it right back up and doesn't allow it to end his round. And that's a rare thing for pretty much any golfer, especially when you watch how those first couple rounds were with the insane amount of wind that was happening at Augusta.
Yeah, because in golf, right, you're your own worst enemy. You get in your own
Yeah.
head. It's all about how you kind of your mental fortitude as an athlete. And this is the second little crazy stat about Scotty Scheffler's run. So he closed at plus 500, which was his odds to win the Masters. Those were the shortest odds to win the Masters since Tiger in 2005, and the shortest for any major since Tiger's U.S. Open win in 2008. So that means basically Vegas is like, no, man, this guy is far and away the best damn golfer
Yeah.
in the world, and he's the best. He's on the best run that we've seen. They're stating since Tiger in his prime, or Tiger close to his prime. Now, how about this? He's only the third golfer. This because golf is all about how you deal with the pressure and expectations, because you don't have a team really to help you with that burden. Right? I played on team and team sports. The beauty of it is you don't have to shoulder that burden and that pressure all by yourself. You got teammates, you got brothers, they'll help you, and you're in it with them. You got a team. He's got his caddy and he's got coaches and stuff like that. But for the most part, it's on you as a golfer in any individual sport. He's only the third golfer to win the Masters as a favorite in the last 40 years, which means you're the favorite to win the Masters. It's a lot of pressure on you.
Yeah.
A lot of pressure. That's a Super Bowl of golf. It's the biggest event in the world in regards to golf. And when you're a favorite, all eyes are on you, all the pressure's on you, and as you talked about, everybody's going to make mistakes. But when you're the obviously the big dog, and all the eyes are on you and all the pressure's on you to win, everything's magnified. So that little small mistake can become something huge, especially if you as a player let it compound and you let it lead to you getting mentally distracted. But he doesn't really do that. I mean, this is a guy that he doesn't let one mistake beat him twice. as you pointed out, and to show that, I think it just shows you. I mean, only a third golfer to win the Masters as a favorite in the last 40 years, and not just win it convincingly.
Yeah.
Not just win it convincingly. He's the first player in history to win the Masters by 3 or more strokes twice in a 3-year span. He's won the Masters twice convincingly. Hell, Patrick Mahomes can't even win. Tom Brady can't win Super Bowls convincingly. Patrick Mahomes can't win Super Bowls convincingly, right? I'm just thinking about the team guys who are the best at their craft, and they can't win the best. They can't win the championship game convincingly. I mean, he's doing it and leaving no doubt at all. I mean, who is better right now at their sport than Scotty Scheffler is at golf? Right now,
know, that's difficult.
Who's better at their sport right now? Sorry if I took your big fat poll today.
It's not, but...
right? Who is better, Patrick? Who is better at their sport right now than Scotty Scheffler is at golf right now?
I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there's I don't know if there's going to be an Olympian that comes out in this Olympics and does it. We'll see that in Paris if there's a Michael Phelps or a Usain Bolt or one of those guys. So there's been those guys. But I say, and especially of a year-round sport that we see all the time. I mean, I don't know. I mean,
is Jokic is he? I mean, he can win his third MVP in a row. I mean, third MVP period, right?
Yeah, third MVP period because
third MVP.
Yeah, MVP won last year.
Yeah. So third in 4 years.
I mean, Jokic is probably up there, but I mean, they're not the 1 seed. I mean, they're tied for the 1 seed, but they're going in as a 2 seed in the playoffs. So it's hard to say that kind of domination. I don't know. I mean, if you just look at what he's done since in the last year, I mean, right now, and that's what you say, we're right now. And so they say the last year and a half of where he started to turn it on and has just hit this other level. I mean, until it slows down. And now there will be the question when he has the kid, does that affect something?
Oh, well, no doubt. Yeah, I mean, that's no question. I mean, some guys get better with the kid, though.
Some guys
get more inspired with the kid.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They have more of a purpose. And I'm like, oh, good Lord. Please give this man more of a purpose.
But that's really your best shot of him not making a top 10 finish now is him having to leave the golf tournament because he's having a baby. That's basically your best shot right now for him to not finish in the top 10.
Yeah. I mean, he's got 9 wins in the last 26 months. 2 of them are Masters wins. I mean, that guy's, like I said, it's hard to find a person, a human being right now better at their sport than Scotty Scheffler years ago. Is it Caitlin Clark? Is she better at women's basketball than he is at golf? I don't think she is. She's awesome. She's amazing. You talking about her being, she's in the GOAT conversation.
And she didn't win the national championship.
Yes, exactly.
It's I know those are team sports, and so there's some difference in there.
Tough.
But it's a tough comparison to think of. By far and away, this is the best player doing it right now. And, you look at it, and it's one of those things in golf where you say, what's the extended period of when he can keep this dominance alive? Because that's the real question of when you talk about greatness. There's been players who have good runs, not necessarily always this good, but they have really good runs. This is now Scotty Scheffler is now on the pace of, is this a, Tiger Woods window where he's dominant for the next, 5 to 6 years? Or is this a run more like Rory McIlroy or some of these other guys who had a really good run, but it was closer to a year or 2 years?
It feels like there's longevity to this thing.
It does. It feels like it right now. And I'm not trying to be a prisoner of the moment, but it looks like how dominant he's being, how he just watching him throughout that Masters where you saw other guys like Bryson DeChambeau, he had a decent, he played well in the first round and got through and then just faltered a little bit and it took him pretty much out of it and he wasn't able to get it back.
I mean, Scotty Scheffler's not playing at a human level right now. Those other guys are playing like they are, they're great golfers, but this guy, he's on a Tiger Woods like run right now. He's the 4th youngest ever to win a Masters a second time. 4th youngest ever behind Jack Nicklaus, Tiger Woods, and Ballesteros. Ballesteros, unfamiliar, but my point is he's in elite company.
Yeah.
Fewest career starts needed to win the second Masters since 1936. So it's the fewest career starts to win the Masters since 1936. Horton Smith won 2 of his first 3 editions ever contested. Second player to win the Players and the Masters in the same season. Tiger Woods did in 2001. Second player to win multiple majors as the number 1 ranked player in the world. To me, that goes to that pressure I'm talking about. Going in, considered to be the best, and then proving it on the ultimate proving ground, which is the Masters. Second player to win multiple majors as the number 1 ranked player in the world ranking. Tiger Woods did it. Yeah, but 11. That's unbelievable. Like that is, like I said, he's on a run. I don't know if we'll see. I don't know if we've seen anything like it since Tiger. And the question that Patrick threw out there is, I think, is apropos. How long will this thing last? Right now for Scottie Scheffler. So congrats to him, a legendary lifetime Longhorn now, even at a young age with what he's done. Let's talk about the Longhorns, specifically the Longhorn men's basketball team, Patrick, because I know you're excited about this. Rodney Terry, within a few hours yesterday, ended up closing 3 different portal commitments. 2 from Indiana State. They just raided Indiana State. Indiana State, their coach left, I believe. Went to St. Louis, and then he's recruiting some of the players from Indiana State, which had their best season since Larry Bird was there.
Yeah, it was because they just missed the tournament,
runner-ups.
and a lot of people believe they should have made the tournament as an
Oh
at-large
yeah,
bid,
there was some question about
and there were some questions.
One of the reasons before that actually is because they had 2 losses. They had losses to Illinois State, and they had another loss to, I think, Southern Illinois that actually came into discussion when the committee was talking about them making the tournament. And Jason Kent, one of the Indiana State transfers who's committed to Texas now, a wing player, was out for those games. Or he got injured during one of them and was out for the other one. That was a big part of why they lost those games, but I digress. They got 2 players, one Jason Kent, the other Julian Larry out of Indiana State, and then they got an Arkansas transfer player, Tremone Mark. Now, Tremone Mark is a scorer, guy he can just flat out score. Jason Kent, from what I understand, really good wing addition for Texas, which they need, and Julian Larry, nice role player. What are your thoughts about the additions for Texas, 3 of them over the last 24 hours?
So Mark is the biggest one you're going to get from Arkansas.
Okay.
He played at Houston before. 6'6" guard, which is a problem. Texas not had necessarily had a lot of size at guard. He's really good on both ends of the court. He needs to improve his shooting a little bit. He's another one of those players that Texas had a few of that can get to the bucket, is really good with the basketball, is dynamic, but just doesn't have the 3-point shot right now. He's not a great jump shooter yet. He's 100% working on that too, because he wants to play at the next level. But that's your top guy. A lot of people had him ranked as one of the top 10 transfers in the portal right now. So a big get for them there. And he does help you on both ends of the court. If you got recruited to Houston, you probably play some defense. So he is going to be he's helpful on both ends of the court. Jason Kent's going to be a good addition. Again, more height, 6'8", can play that wing position. He's a good rebounder for his size as well. At 6'8", you can be a good rebounder or a poor rebounder. He's a really good rebounder. His 3-point shot's not bad. He shot about 37% last year, just didn't attempt a bunch. He'll need to bump up those numbers a little bit better, get that 3-point shot. And Julian Larry, also really good 3-point percentage, shot 46% last year, shot 46% the year before, took about double the threes this season. He's going to have to improve that a little bit more, because if he can come in and play and shoot the 3, that was one of the Texas big holes last season. And in today's game, you just have to be able to hit 3-pointers to kind of spread that defense out. They still need to find a big in the portal. They don't really have a big right now with Dylan DeSue leaving. You have Caden Shedrick there. You need another big in that lineup. So it'll be interesting to see where they go with that. But you added Mark, who is probably going to be a starter for you on this team, unless something else really comes along and dominates. Mark will probably be a starter for you, and then you add in Jason Kent, who will be a rotation player. We don't know. It depends on Dylan Mitchell, what he ends up doing. But Jason Kent, probably a good rotation player. And Julian Larry is one of those guys you bring in that you want to see what he can bring to you at a higher level. He's 6'3", so he's a little bit bigger. He's not somebody else. You're also not bringing another guy who's a good scorer, but 6 foot, which becomes harder and harder to score at a higher level. play. So that'll be questionable to see what he does. He could be a really good player for Texas, but he's one that's going to have to earn the minutes with some other young guys to get in there. But in all, it's a good weekend. You want to start getting some guys to come in. You want to show other transfers that it is a destination to come to. And so I think it's a good sign that Texas was out there being busy over the weekend, got some of those recruits to come in. And now you're really wondering, I think you just want to bring in another good big. And if you can bring another good big with Trey Johnson coming in, he's going to be a star player for you next season, your freshman coming in. So if you can bring another big, and then you find out what's happening with Dylan Mitchell, what's happening with Tyrese Hunter, and you start to kind of fill out what your lineup's going to be. Kendall Weaver's still on this team as well. He's going to be a big part of the lineup next season. So you just kind of need to keep figuring out where those pieces are going to come. But I like that they brought in Mark is really the biggest piece you brought in over the weekend. He's a guy that fits with Ronnie Terry, but all three guys can play defense too, and that's big for playing just any style of top-level basketball. You have to be able to have guys can defend, and then hopefully those guys will be hitting their threes as well. And that if you can hit threes and defend, you are a big piece of any college basketball team in 2024.
Yeah, no, that's a good point because Jason Kent, he improved his 3-point percentage a lot from his previous 3 years. He was around 27%, and you said now he's close to 37%. That's it. And you brought up the fact that Julian Larry, his 3-point percentage, around 46%. And the kid, Tremont Mark, he's just a bucket, right? He can score. His first, I saw this stat that his first collegiate start, he scored 22 points in his college debut. His college debut, not just started, but this is his college debut. He scored 22 points, and he did have that 26-point performance in the tournament versus Auburn in the second round to help U of H advance to the Sweet 16. He's basically looked at as a guy, a starter for you. Jason Kent as a rotational player should be in the rotation for you, and then Julian Larry is more of a role player who you hope can provide and contribute a lot more for you. He's a Frisco native too, Julian Larry. I believe Jason Kent was born in Austin, even though he's a native of Illinois, close to that Chicago area, and started out at Bradley College. He actually was born in the ATX, if I'm not mistaken. And Tremont Mark, he's a guy that originally, as my man Patrick said, started his career at U of H. So a lot of ties to Texas, and Rodney Terry, man, working hard too. And Indiana State, raiding Indiana State, who were the runner-ups in the NIT this past season. All right, a good discussion there about Rodney Terry and the Texas men's basketball team working hard, getting 3 transfer portal commitments last night, or yesterday, I should say. So we'll get into some more discussion about that coming up later on the show. Next segment, let's talk Texas football. They had a big spring scrimmage over the weekend. A lot of different sources dropping news notes and nuggets about what happened at that scrimmage. We'll review them all, bring them all together for our Behind the Burnt Orange Curtain segment, and talk about Texas football and who is separating themselves, elevating themselves on this roster via that second scrimmage they had. The only one I think they'll have right before the spring game coming up this next weekend. So a lot to talk about for Texas spring football. We'll get into that coming up next segment right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers coming back on the horn. Hey, what's up, folks? Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers here. Let's talk about Callahan's General Store, because right now is the perfect time for you to make sure that your lawn and your yard is looking in golf course condition. You want to make sure that everything's looking beautiful and lush and healthy. And my friends at Callahan's, they can help you out with that. They can provide you with all the knowledge, but also all the resources you need. I know this firsthand because I've been working on my yard for a couple of months now, trying to make sure it gets right, and it's looking great. Thanks, my friends over at Callahan's General Store, and it can be the same for you. It doesn't matter if you need the pre-emergence. They have that as well with the Barricade product from Nitro Foss, other products as well. Or if you need the weed and feed, they have plenty of that at my friends over at Callahan's General Store, whether it's the bags of soil you need, or you need seed, grass seed to cover up those patches that have been worn out from the extreme heat or the extreme cold. My friends at Callahan's have that as well. They have all the amendments, the special fertilizers, everything you need to make sure that your lawn is getting back into that beautiful and lush looking condition. So it's golf course ready. My friends at Callahan's can help you with that. Also, if you have the green thumb and you're starting to plant those seedling vegetables, they got plenty of those as well for your gardens. Weekly variety of peppers, tomatoes, melons, and other plants to choose from. And it's also time to start planting those trees. So if you're thinking about planting trees around, they got the fruit trees, the pecan trees, everything you need there at Callahan's General Store. You know where it is, 501 Bastrop Highway between downtown and the airport. Every day is a great day to make it a Callahan's day. All right, let's talk about some Texas football here. They had their first, their second scrimmage of the spring. I believe it's the last scrimmage before the spring game for the Longhorns. And there were some notes that came out from different sources. Our friends over at Inside Texas, Eric Nylene over at Inside Texas put out that Malik Muhammad actually had a really good day. As obviously I'm a little bit biased, keeping up with the secondary. I've been talking about the secondary projecting as a strength this year. They should be a strength this year for Texas, considering bringing in Makuba, the veterans you're bringing back there. Malik Muhammad, Eric Nalin said, was the best player on the field today during Texas's scrimmage. And I believe most of it was ones versus twos. I'm not sure how much they did good on good, which is ones on ones. I believe a lot of the rest were ones on twos. But Malik Muhammad reportedly, from my man Chip Brown's report over at Horns 24/7, he always does a great job. He claimed Malik Muhammad had an interception against Arch Manning, and that Jalen Gilbo looked really, really impressive playing the star position. Remember, Sark has been really complimentary of Jalen Gilbo, saying that he looks like he's back to his old form. At one point, Jalen Gilbo was a starter at nickel for Texas before the ascent of Jadae Barron and before his injury. You can get Jalen Gilbo back to giving you starter caliber reps along with Jadae Barron. It allows you more flexibility with Jahdae Barron, right? You can move him around the formation depending on the personnel grouping you want to use. If you want to go base personnel, or if you want to go with some sub packages, or you can decide, based on the matchup that week, that you can move Jahdae Barron around if you trust what you have in Jalen Gilbo. So Malik Muhammad and Jalen Gilbo reportedly had really, really good scrimmages. Also, since we're talking about the DBs, I did see or hear that Gavin Holmes was getting a lot of run with the number ones at the other corner opposite of Malik Muhammad. Now, I still think Terrence Brooks is going to be the starter potentially, but he may be being pushed by Gavin Holmes, at least based on some of the reports that we're seeing from the reps of the corners. Now, they want to rotate guys. We know that. They're going to rotate guys, but Gavin Holmes is working a lot with the ones. So we'll see if maybe they believe they got three different guys they can rotate there. I do believe Malik Muhammad is going to be the guy that separates. I've been saying for a while that he's your ball hawk in that secondary. He's the guy that's, havoc minded. He's going to make more plays on the football. And I think, if I had to make a bet, I would say for anybody in that secondary to lead the team in interceptions, it would probably be Malik Muhammad, just because he is programmed to make so many different plays on the football. That's just the way that he plays the game. You even saw that in the Washington game when he's out there. He's the only one that came close to making a play on the football. When Michael Penix was out there wheeling and dealing, he almost got a pick. Now, it ended up being a touchdown, but he came close. He's that kind of player, and I think, Texas will benefit from it because now he's more of a sound technician. He can play man coverage. They want to play more bump and run coverage, and Malik Muhammad can do that too. And I think that Gavin Holmes actually is a guy that has, that kind of ability to play bump and run. I've talked to Gavin Holmes, and he said he prefers to play bump and run coverage on the outside. And I've talked about how I like Terrence Brooks. So maybe they believe they got three starting caliber corners. If that's the case, that'll be a huge benefit. And man, make it four if you can move Jahdae Barron around, because you can move him out to corner, have Jalen Gilbo playing that star if you need him to play that star. So they just have options. That's what versatility is going to bring you. It's going to bring you options potentially. Okay. That's enough for the secondary. I know I'm spending a lot of time with it. Also, Jelani McDonald. Jelani McDonald also is getting a lot of reps at safety too in the rotation. Derek Williams and Michael Taft reportedly are the guys that are getting the first team reps, and then Makuba and Jelani McDonald getting some second team reps there. Just throwing it out there. Also, it was reported that Chip Brown reported that Jere Bledsoe had a hell of a day. That he looked really good at the defensive tackle position, which is something they need, Patrick, because, losing Byron Murphy, losing Tavondre Sweat, they need some young guys to step up. We know Vernon Broughton and Alfred Collins, they should be fine and be able to, really solidify things and stabilize things as frontline starters, but you need a heavy rotation at that interior D line, at least a healthy rotation. And Jere Bledsoe stepping up, having a big day. I don't know if that means he's ascending, or if that means your second team interior O-line may not be as stout and formidable as you thought. But I'm hoping that it's the former and not the latter.
Yeah, I mean, you're hoping that it is, Kenny Baker being able to get this team a little bit more ready, getting some of these young guys up to form as the spring's coming out, that this is their first real shot. They've been pretty far down the depth chart, or they haven't really been up there. So this is the first shot a lot of guys are getting, because we know Alfred Collins and Vert Broughton were kind of that next in line guys. Now they're stepping up, and everybody steps up in that next in line. So it's good to see. It's good to hear reports that there's some guys stepping up out of that defensive line, because it is one of the biggest question marks. I won't say it's one of the biggest weaknesses. I'll say it's one of the biggest question marks for Texas right now.
Yeah, there's I'm with you, no doubt about that. I mean, it could be a hole on the roster and we'll get into it later on. The transfer portal is opening up April 16th. The transfer portal opens up. We'll see if Texas looks to the transfer portal to try to fill the hole in their roster with a defensive tackle, interior lineman that can play that A gap, that can play that zero, that one technique. They don't really have that on the roster. They can money ball if they have guys that, could do it, but nobody really specializes in it right now on the roster for Texas. Savea could do it. I think, Alfred Collins, you could do it, but it's not ideal to their skill set. Most of these guys with three techniques. Getting back to the D-line, Ethan Burke and Baron Sorrell got most of the reps on the outside. Number one, they say Colin Simmons continues to look like a beast, that he looks great in pass rushing scenarios. And I think Trey Moore is going to be, he doesn't look the part, but I think Trey Moore is actually going to be a really good impact player for Texas on the outside. Probably your best natural pass rusher. Combine that with Ethan Burke, Baron Sorrell, and Colin Simmons, you really should have some strong edge defenders this season. Probably the best edge defenders you've had since Sark has been here on campus, and the best group of them. And they should be really impactful, providing the pressure from the edges instead of the interior. And the hope is that that means you'll get more sacks, you'll get more splash plays, you'll force more negative plays. Because for all the really talented front seven defenders Texas has had the last 2 years, Overshown, Jalen Ford, Murphy, Ojimo, Coburn, Sweat, and they've had, I'm going to say, NFL caliber guys. They haven't been able to make a lot of splash plays behind the line of scrimmage, sacks, tackles for loss, negative plays. That's what they want to get to. I think that's the next step for this defense. And hopefully now with the edges being the strength of the defense, and that pressure coming from the edge as opposed to the interior, which is why it was coming from the first, or at least the first 3 years for Sark, because of how deep you were in the interior D line. The belief is that you'll get home more and you'll make more of those plays because you have more athleticism forcing that pressure rather than the mass and just the sheer kind of dominance of your interior defensive line. And that is the hope, but we don't know if that's the theory, but we don't know if that's actually going to materialize. But like I said, that's the hope for the Texas defense this year. Quinn Ewers looked real good. Apparently throwing the football, he looked great. Jonte Cook reportedly scored the first touchdown. Our friends at On Texas Football reported that there were some drops, a couple of drops with the receivers. Reportedly that came from my man Chip Brown, but it says that Quinn looked great and that Ryan Wingo, also another guy that continues to get a ton of praise, either from Sark, from other teammates, and also from other coaches. He is a freshman who is way ahead of schedule, and really playing and making impact plays in practice like he's a veteran guy. It's going to be hard to keep Ryan Wingo off the field because another report here from Chip Brown says Ryan Wingo has been who has been coming on the last 5 spring practices also had a good day. And Juan Davis and Amari Nyblack reportedly also made some plays. Jaden Blue got another shout out here in this practice report, the scrimmage report from my man Chip Brown, that he looked really good finishing off a red zone possession with a touchdown run. So Jaden Blue, some of the same names keep coming up, and they seem to consistently, I think, be themes so far this spring. Ryan Wingo is one of those themes. Jaden Blue's, ascension and Jaden Blue's really progress has been also one of those things that I think has been a common theme all throughout the spring. And Malik Muhammad's also been one of those things. He's coming off the injury, but even before the injury, there was talk that Malik Muhammad was ready to take the next step. So I'm glad that these are consistent themes. Means these guys have been not just flashing in spring, Patrick, that they've been really elevating and separating themselves from the rest of the guys. That's what you want to see in the spring. So you already know who are your proven commodities, who you can go out there and depend on.
Yeah, you want to be able to know, what when you're roster building and when you're planning on what you need to train these guys on and who you need to work with the most as you get into next season. The guys that you're able to say, these are frontline guys, they're starters, they're the people who will lead this team this season. You can kind of plan their coaching a little bit differently and plan the guys behind them, not having to worry so much about them being frontline stars this year, but teaching them the next man up mentality. But it's a good sign that you have some guys that are starting to separate, because without those guys on your roster, you can't really compete at the highest levels.
Yeah, I'm glad that, like I said, these wide receivers, we assume that, the veterans who are proven commodities coming in, your Matthew Goldens, your Isaiah Bonds, those guys are going to be impact players for Texas. Why bring those guys on, especially with the losses they had in the receiving core? But hearing about guys like Ryan Wingo who are stepping up, hearing about guys like DeAndre Moore, he wasn't in these specific scrimmage reports, but hearing about those guys really does give me a lot of optimism, because I think that Quinn is primed to have a big year. The only thing that really could affect that is chemistry with that group, that new group of wide receivers. So glad to hear that he's already had some, at least in practice and in the scrimmages, he's had some success getting on the same page with those guys. And they're not happy to hear about drops on multiple occasions, but that happens early on, just kind of getting used to the timing. But Isaiah Bond reportedly looks really good. Jonte Cook is starting to assert himself as a receiver. And then you got Ryan Wingo. Now, I don't know how much Ryan Wingo is going to be, in the starting rotation, but he has taken some reps. I remember seeing that, has taken some reps with the first team. Doesn't mean that he's going to be a starter for you or anything like that, but he may be a guy that they believe they can insert in the rotation and that it will expedite his development as a player, because he's already considered a prodigy as a 5-star coming in. Even more reason I think Sark is going to expand that circle of trust of those wide receivers. So all the reports are that Quinn looks good. The deep ball is something I think that they're working on reportedly. One of the reports from Chip Brown is that Sark, was, at one point highly critical of the footwork for Quinn Ewers on one of his deep balls, about planting his feet, and and then they saw that corrected throughout the practice and into the first scrimmage, and that also is something I think that is going to be it's going to be a theme early on in the season. It'll affect the narrative early on. People do want to see Texas connect on the deep ball because Sark wants to see it too, and it's something they really haven't had in their toolbox the last 2 years, because it's just not a natural strength for Quinn. But in the workout at the pro day, it was something that the NFL scouts really wanted to see, and reportedly Quinn looked great throwing the deep ball. Now that's in shorts. I get it, and it's just it's basically in shorts, and there's no pressure, and it's not real football. But that is something I think that Sark wants to see more of. The scouts want to see more of. And with the weaponry that Sark is assembling, it only makes sense, all the speed that he stockpiles, that you'd be able to stretch the field with the deep ball. So early on, I think they'll try it, just like they did last year. If it doesn't work, then Sark will curtail it and he will make the necessary adjustments. But early on, I think Texas is going to chunk the deep ball just to see if Quinn has improved on it. And if he hasn't, then they're not. I don't think he's going to, be irresponsible with it. But I think early on he wants to bring it back. That's a big part of Sark's offense, and he hasn't been able to unveil it really at Texas successfully. It hadn't worked for him.
Yeah, the question is going to be, does Sark wait to unveil it until he sets it up with a short game and with the running game, or does Sark just get too excited and play 2 of the season? All right, throw deep. I couldn't wait to set it. I couldn't allow myself to let the safeties get pulled in and get single coverage and make this a better shot for Quinn Ewers. I got to see if he can do it in double coverage, and we're throwing it to one guy, and this is the read, and just throw it up there and hope nothing bad happens. That'll be more than that's always a question. If he starts to go back to the deep ball, does he try and do it where it's a winning situation where the odds are it's your guys coming down with it or no one's coming down with it, or do you throw it over where you're trusting Quinn to make the read in the moment that the safety's not coming over, that his wide receiver is going to get the space and he's going to be able to put up a good pass? Because the deep ball is one thing. He may still not be the best deep ball thrower, but if you can convince people that he's not going to throw it deep and then you throw it deep, then it makes it a lot easier to make that throw.
That is true. I mean, you're talking about forcing it. That's what Sark was doing. He was forcing that deep ball. It was like, no. It'll come naturally within the structure of the game, and as the game plays out, if you are taking what the defense is giving you.
Yes.
And there are times where he wasn't trying to take what the defense is giving. He was trying to take what he wanted, which was that deep ball. And I think that's where Coach Steven came into play for Sark, and he had to find a way to overcome his inner demon, which is Coach Steven. Yeah. And he did, by the way. He did a great job of that. Sark stopped throwing that deep ball, and he stopped throwing it on first down, and he started waiting to the defense gave him a more favorable look. Yeah. And then he would take that calculated shot downfield. But I do wonder early on if he would just say, nah, the hell with it. I want to see if we got it. And then That's this Coach Steven where he's like, no, I'm just trying to force it, and it's not necessarily about taking what the defense is giving you. But the Sark wants the deep ball. Oh yeah, trust me, he wants to bring it back. All right, well, we'll come back. Some good practice nuggets there. So shout out to all the great sources covering Texas football, including my man over there, Chip Brown at Horns 24/7, the folks over there at Inside Texas, and Owen Texas football. My crew over there with Bobby Burton and Jerry Hamilton, CJ Vogel, and the crew. All right, we come back. We'll get into the big fat poll of the day on the other side and learn what our musically themed day of the week is. Thanks to our idealionaire Patrick Davis, my co-host here on the Rodcast. I'm lifetime Longhorn Rod Davis, coming right back on the horn. Hey, what's up, folks? Lifetime Longhorn Rod Davis here. We all love living in the city of Austin. What's not to love? And if you're a homeowner in Austin, well, you actually own some of the most valuable real estate in America. The only downside is the property taxes are also some of the highest in the state. And many of my fellow Austinites, like you listening right now, are overpaying on your property taxes. Don't freak out. I was overpaying on my property taxes too before I found OwnWell. OwnWell can help you protest unfair property taxes and save hundreds, potentially thousands of dollars on your property taxes. And it only takes 3 minutes to sign up. There are no upfront fees or costs. OwnWell will save you money or it's free. That's a guarantee. So if you don't save, you don't pay. 86% of OwnWell's customers save on their property taxes. OwnWell handles everything from start to finish. They deliver on average savings around $1,100, folks. Think about what you could do with that extra money, extra $1,100 in your pocket. OwnWell provides you with local tax experts backed by cutting-edge technology and the best in-class customer support. So what are you waiting for? Save money on your property taxes with OwnWell. Sign up in less than 3 minutes and start your protest today at ownwell.com. That's ownwell.com, OWNWELL.com, ownwell.com.
Back in the Rodcast on a Monday morning, and that means it is a smooth soul Monday, getting you eased in to a Monday morning here on the Horn. Always try and do it on a Monday. Try and keep it nice. Try and keep it simple. By the end of the show, the music will pick up a little bit, and we'll feel good, and we're ready to attack the week. So we do here on a Smooth Soul Monday. But it is time for the big fat poll of the day. Text line's open 512-447-3776.
Patrick's big fat poll of the day on the Horn.
All right, with the NBA season, regular season over, I thought it'd be a time to look again at the three Texas NBA teams. And we can see that the Mavs are in the playoffs. They're the 5 seed. They had a great end of the season, looking good. The Rockets finish at 500. Come back up. They didn't quite get over the hump this year, but they got to 500 after several years of floundering at the bottom, being a top pick in the draft, all of those things. They've gotten themselves back up to 500. And the Spurs did not improve their record at all last season. They won the last 2 games of the season to end up anti-tanking and bump themselves from, I believe, from the 2nd odds to the 5th. However, it was some confidence boosting, look good for the team. In this year's draft, it's not a huge deal to drop down a few picks. There is no sure number 1 in this year's draft. There's no sure number 2 or 3 or 4 or 5. It's kind of all a wash, so it's not the worst thing in the world. But when you look at all of those pieces and you see where everybody's at, Victor Wembanyama is now in the league. You have Luka Doncic on the Mavs, and then the Rockets, a lot of young talent. The question of the day, big fat poll of the day today: which Texas NBA team will win their next championship first? So, which Texas NBA team will win their next NBA championship first? You can say the Mavs are the closest. They're in the playoffs this year. They could technically do it this year. They have Luka and Kyrie, but do they have enough pieces to get past everybody else in the NBA? Do they have enough pieces to get it done? And if they don't, how do they get over that hump and get to that next level? That's the question for the Mavs. The Rockets are getting there. They're improving. They improved a lot this season, but they're going to have to start answering some questions of who they re-sign, who they trade for, what they try and do as they piece it together. Jalen Green, can he be the star player that you need to have? Can Jabari Smith improve? Alperen Sengun, does he stay at a high level that he's been playing at? But Jalen Green, that's the big question, because he's going to want a lot of money. And if he's not been consistent over his time there, do you want to give him all that money? And that's where you go. And for the Spurs, you have Victor Wembanyama. The second half of his season looked generational, but can you put the pieces around him to start really improving that win-loss record? Because that's what matters at the end. Did they become the team that's able to put it together? Let us know what you think. 512-447-3776. Which Texas NBA team wins their next championship first?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good debate. It really is. You can make an argument. I think the best arguments are for San Antonio and for Dallas. I think the toughest argument would be for the Rockets. It's the toughest argument of the 3, but you can make one. But it would be the toughest argument of the 3. Oh man, right now, because how long is it going to take the Spurs to build around Wemby, and then how does it look? We've never seen a player like Wemby, so there is no blueprint about how you even build a roster around him. Like because the way you build the roster will determine what kind of player he's going to be. Do you even want to put him in a box? How do you construct that roster? You put scores around, you put deep. I mean, I don't know what you do. You could go a number of ways. I mean, that's how wild and expansive and obtuse and strange his skill set is. He's truly an extraterrestrial in that sense. So does it take them a while to figure out the right blueprint, because they're like, there's nothing to work with here. There's no template.
Well, I don't even know if it's that so much as trying to find the players where you say, I know exactly what type of player I want, but how do I find that guy at the high enough level to do it, who's available and I can bring in? Because if you look at the point guard, you kind of know what you want at point guard. But what you want at point guard is Chris Paul 12 seasons ago. That guy doesn't exist right now. And so you have to find guys that you can mold into the right players. You're really, Devin Vassell's a really good third player for your team. You say Wemby's your one, Devin Vassell's kind of your third, but you feel like you need that second guy. And who is that going to be, that second guy? That's one of those questions for the Spurs. Can they find that? So it's a tricky one, because all three of them do have arguments. The Rockets do say they have a ton of young talent. So if you say a team has a good player that they're trying to unload, so if Giannis or somebody like that becomes available, and I'm not saying Giannis is, but just a player that's really good and you want to make a big trade, they can trade 4 or 5 guys off this team and still have a decent competitive team. And then you add in a star because you can trade off a Jabari Smith or an Alperen Sengun or a Jalen Green if you get the right player in return, and then add in Tari Eason or add in Cam Whitmore or one of those guys who's another good role player. You have a lot of those guys on your bench right now. You have a lot of good young players, so you can make a big trade. But the question is, does that trade get pulled off? Do you make the right one? Is it somebody that Ime can build around? And can you get it done before you have to kind of get so cap committed with a lot of these guys and you fall to that middle ground? You just have to be aggressive now.
Yeah. No, it's a good question. It's a good debate, which is always the case for Patrick's big fat poll today. All right, so that is it. Which one of the Texas NBA teams right now, who will win their next championship first? Which one of those Texas NBA teams will win the next championship first? That's interesting. Yeah, we'll get into that on the other side. We're talking NBA. We'll talk about the NBA playoffs, which are pretty much set. We still got the play-ins before that coming up this week. So we'll talk about the play-ins and also the playoffs. We'll also get into Rod's Round today, which is also NBA related. It's that time of year. We'll come back right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers coming back on the horn. Welcome back to the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers. It is a Smooth Soul Monday. My man Patrick the Idillionaire comes up with the musically themed days of the week, and a Smooth Soul Monday is meant to transition you from hopefully a relaxing and a very enjoyable weekend to the very rough work week. So we want to make that transition as smooth as possible. So my man Patrick hooks you up with a Smooth Soul Monday. So we appreciate his efforts, his creativity, his energy. You have more of that coming for you in the Horn headlines coming up here momentarily. But yes, I do appreciate little Gladys Knight and the Pips. When I was a kid, I remember my dad had to correct me because I thought it was the Pimps, and I thought Gladys Knight was hanging out with a bunch of pimps. And my dad also wanted to know how, at a young age, I knew about pimps, and I was like, I don't know much about pimps, obviously, because I think she's hanging out with these pimps, and they're not pimps at all; they're pips.
So they're very well dressed. They're very well dressed.
I mean, exactly. I mean, I thought but I was looking at it from. I obviously didn't know what a pimp was. I was looking at it from the woman. She was out front, and she was the leader of this group of pimps. Which that's not how pimping works at all. No, that's not. That's no, and we don't endorse or advocate for pimping at all on the show because we're all about female empowerment. So there you go, man.
we are. Anyway. We do endorse pimping.
Pimping, yes.
Yes, if you want to be a pimp, go right ahead.
Pimping, but not pimping. Yeah, there you go. That's a big difference. Neither one is easy, by the way. All right, so my man Patrick hooking you up with a Smooth Soul Monday. We appreciate that. Also, he threw out another good one, another good topic of conversation. It's an interesting debate on the big fat poll of the day. Patrick, before we get to our Horn headlines, let the people know what the big fat poll of the day is.
Which Texas NBA team will win their next championship first? Yeah, they're in three different spots, especially in finishing of the standings. Mavs are your 5 seed. The Rockets just missed the play-in at 500. Now, honestly, I would say if I was running it, I'd let the Rockets play in the play-in in the East. Say, screw the other two teams. The Rockets are a much better team than the Bulls.
Have like an exception rule. Like, you know what? I get to make it's a commissioner's exception. I'm putting the Rockets in.
No, it's great. And then if they get in as an 8 seed, then they get to play the Celtics, and Ime has to play the Celtics. It'd be great. Everyone would enjoy it.
That would be freaking awesome. Actually,
everyone would enjoy it. They'd lose, but it'd be fun to watch.
Oh, you know what? That's not a bad idea though. If you have teams who in the West have records that are,
if you're below 500, you're below 500. Yeah. You can't.
You should make it. You should be able to have a commissioner's exemption or a commissioner's exception for teams. Yeah, if you're below 500, it's like, no, I can actually put another team in.
You can put another team. Bring the Rockets over there.
That's a great one. That's not bad.
I'd rather have the Rockets and Utah. I'm fine with Utah being over there too, but I'm also West Coast biased.
I support this radical idea of yours. I really do. I actually do. It has merit.
But the question is, who would win the championship first? We know Victor Wembanyama on the Spurs makes a lot of people think that they could be in there. Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving playing really well in the hunt this season. The only team that's in the hunt this season, and the Rockets with a ton of young pieces, and a really good coach, and headed in the right direction. But can they get all the way?
I'm gonna go Luka and the Mavs right now. If you go Luka in the Mavs right now, I just don't. I know the Spurs are going to win a title with Wemby. There's no doubt in my mind.
Yeah.
But man, Luka is a generational talent.
He is.
He is. I mean, all the stats would say that he is, and he's teamed up with. People keep saying this: the most skilled player in NBA history, best one-on-one player in NBA history, and they're the most skilled backcourt in the NBA history. Even you, it was a hoops.
No, I get that, but you just look at who's on the rest of the roster. And that's where the problem arises, is that two guys cannot win you a title.
I just think it's a Jason Kidd issue, too.
I think Jason Kidd's – I agree with you.
You think he's a champ? I just don't know if he's the guy. I think he's what kind of Mark Jackson was for, like, Golden State early on. But you got to go find the Steve Kerr to put you over the top.
No, I could agree with that,
too. Some good foundation stuff, you know what I mean? But I don't know if he's going to be the guy to win a title for you.
No, I agree with that. And I think that's probably going to be the change you have to make if you don't achieve what you want in this year's playoffs. Because, I mean, the reality is P.J. Washington, Drew Gafford, and Derek Lewis, like, if you look at those guys and you put them in a starting lineup of any other team, they're not remotely close to sniffing the playoffs.
No.
So it's just, you don't have guys that are real star players. Like, all those guys were coming. Drew Gafford was on the Wizards, who were awful. And P.J. Washington was on the Hornets, who were awful. When we look at those, it's really, even Josh Green, he's got potential, but he's just all these guys. They're closer to what guys. I don't know if they'd be starting on the Spurs. I mean, Drew Gafford would, but
Wow.
just like
Wow.
they're
Wow.
guys that are just at that level where I don't know if you take BJ Washington or Jeremy Sohan, and so if you say they're all kind of that level player, then it's that's why it's harder to say they're going to win a championship. But you could be right if you get the right coach in there who can elevate those types of players. Then that could take them, and all of a sudden, look, it's the difference of Draymond Green. Draymond Green wasn't playing for Golden State. Mark Jackson didn't have him playing, and then he becomes a pivotal part of your dynasty with Steve Kerr. So if you can get somebody, one of those players, to take over, then the Mavs jump to the front of that line.
Yeah, and then you can make obviously the Wemby argument is an easy one too. I don't know how long the Wemby championship model takes to construct. I believe it's inevitable. I believe it's I believe it's gonna happen. I just don't know how long it takes because, like I said, there's no template for it. This is we've never seen anything like Wemby, and I don't even know how you start building a roster around him. What would be the first priority for you around Wemby? What would the first thing you get around Wemby?
I mean, the reality is you really want them to get a really solid point guard. And I like Trey Jones a lot, but you'd really like them to get it. And it's a one position. I don't know who you get. So you're kind of hoping that there's a guard in this draft that they feel really, really good about and that has a potential to be that guy. I don't know if there is that guy because there's a few guys you could look at, but none of them seem like, oh, well, that's a sure thing, going to be a starting point guard. They could be around Trey Jones, could be around Derek White, or and so that's the question there. And I think forwards you can figure out, but you need to get one more star player probably in the forwards position. It's difficult to figure out where you're going to be able to get everybody in there.
Yeah, no, you're right. Point guard thing, it's easier said than done, but that's a great.
Or they could just draft Bronny James and get LeBron to come, and then they'll be good.
Hey, all right, you joking now, but I'm telling you, but I guess Wemby's not close enough. Do you think there's an acquisition? Like, let's just say jump out on that grassy knoll and say they draft Bronny in the second round. Wemby's not close. They're not close enough yet as a roster of Wemby to compete for a championship.
I mean, with the draft picks they have, they could go super all in a second season and really they could and get close. I mean, the question would be how much can Wemby advance over the offseason? How much does LeBron have left in the tank? I think those would be your two big questions. But they could get, let's put it this way. They'd be a playoff team. They'd be in the hunt. But we see that we see LeBron with AD this year on the Lakers is a play-in team.
Yeah, it's true. That's a great point. No, you're right about that. LeBron automatically will make you a play-in, playoff team. And you said you add some other pieces. You should give yourself a shot. Anyway, that's not going to happen, I don't think. No. But it is, hey, listen, Bron wants to play with Bronny. We know that. And Bronny, I did see the report, he's going to focus now on his pro aspirations as opposed to the transfer portal. So apparently he's working more toward being an NBA player. Because I think somebody's told him, and maybe Bronny's told him, dude, your draft stock is not rising, really. You're going to be what you are. You're never going to be a first-round pick. You're going to always be a second-round guy. And that's just your ceiling right now in the draft.
No, I mean, and that's the reality with Bronny is, and I keep seeing people talking about it, and they're like, well, he'd be better off if he stayed. And you go, I get that, but he not necessarily, because all that's going to mean is the bust on him is going to become clearer and clearer as time goes on, because he just doesn't feel like he's going to be able to ever work through and get that star player ability, but he could be a 3-and-D guy if he learns how to do that properly. Yeah. And I don't know how much he probably should stay. If he was anyone other than LeBron's kid, he should stay in college because he wouldn't go pro. But since he will be able to get on an NBA team because he's LeBron kids, go for it. Why not?
Hey, nepotism is powerful, man. It's a powerful thing. I'm trying to have my kids benefit from it if possible, but I don't know if I'm accomplished enough. All right, let's get to the hard headlines with my man Patrick Davis. Will get us updated, educated, and informed of the big headlines of the day. And then we'll come back, discuss some more NBA, because the play-ins and the playoffs set for the NBA. We'll discuss those a little bit. And Raj ran the day, also NBA related. We'll do all of that and more. But first, let's hit our horn headlines.
All right, your horn headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. Texas baseball got a home run from D. Kennedy on Saturday in the 9th inning and then rode an 8-run ninth inning on Sunday to get a much-needed series win over Houston 2-1 after a slow start on Friday. They'll be back in action on Tuesday against UT Rio Grande Valley. And Texas softball swept their series against Baylor behind Reese Atwood's 10 RBIs. They will face Kansas next weekend. In golf, Scottie Scheffler maintained his dominance of the game with a 4-stroke victory at the Masters. This is Scottie Scheffler's second Masters victory and his third tour win of the year. Scheffler has now had a top 10 finish in 8 of the 9 events he has played this season. Texas men's basketball was busy yesterday, bringing 3 transfers as they rebuild the roster for next season. Texas landed 2 players from Indiana State, forward Jason Kent, who averaged 13.5 points and 8.1 rebounds per game, and guard Julian Larry, who shot 46% from 3 last season. Longhorns also grabbed 6'6" guard Tremont Mark from Arkansas, who is a dynamic player on both ends of the court. In the NBA, the playoff seeding and play-in tournament are set. The Mavericks finished with the 5 seed and will be taking on the Clippers starting next weekend, while the Thunder were able to take the number 1 seed in the West a year after failing to make the playoffs after losing to the Timberwolves in the play-in. The Rockets finished their season at 41-41, a marked improvement over their 22-60 season a year ago, and the Spurs finished at 22-60 for the second straight season in a row and will have the 5th best odds in the draft lottery. And in the Major League Baseball, the Astros were able to take the series with the Rangers 2-1 after a disastrous start, giving up 12 runs in the first 6 innings. Altuve and Tucker both had multi-home run games, and the Astros were finally able to win their first series of the season. The Astros are back in action tonight facing the Braves, while the Rangers begin their series with the Tigers, with pregame beginning at 5 p.m. right here on the Horn, and that is your Horn Headlines.
All right, thank you, Patrick, for the Horn Headlines. Of course, in the first hour to start out the show, we talked about Scottie Scheffler and his emergence as the most dominant golfer in the world, and also got into Rodney Terry's big Sunday fun day, if you will, getting 3 portal commitments in the span of a few hours. So we'll get back to that conversation, I promise you, but I want to get into some NBA because it is that time of year, NBA postseason starting up this week. We do have the play-in set, and I think, Patrick, if you're just looking at the star power, celebrity star power of the play-in teams, this is actually what Adam Silver, this is what he envisioned for the play-in. He basically wanted to be able to maximize star power in the playoffs. He wanted to give the stars of the league more opportunities to make a postseason run, to give themselves a shot in the playoffs. And that's what you get. You got a lot of your star power, especially in the West, right? A lot of your star power in the play-in game. You have the late in that 7-8 matchup, which is happening tomorrow. You got the Lakers and you got New Orleans. So you got LeBron James and Anthony Davis there. And then your 9-10 matchup happening tomorrow too. You'll have a Golden State. So you got Steph and company versus at Sacramento. So you'll have your star power in the West, and I think you get it some in the East. Now, I know you have your thoughts about the Eastern Conference period and how competitive it's been or lack thereof, but you do get, Jimmy Butler, Hemi, in the playoffs. He's Hemi in the playoffs. You get Joel Embiid, who's been hurt this season, but he's back for the postseason. You get some Trae Young thrown in there in the 9-10 matchup with Atlanta at Chicago. But that Miami at Philadelphia matchup, 7-8, at least you get some star power there. So I think ultimately, I'm not talking about how competitive the game is going to be. I know you'll get into that, and that's a little bit different. But in terms of being able, having players who are a draw, who bring eyeballs, they do have that in the play-in, and those guys have an opportunity to advance in the postseason and give themselves a playoff berth and actually in the playoff. And I think that's ultimately what Adam Silver wanted. He was another opportunity for these teams to be in the postseason. And if they can get in, then the NBA will benefit, trust me, from a ratings boost. But if not, at least they weren't in the playoffs, but at least they were in the postseason, technically.
Yeah, and I mean, it would have been a shame that Sacramento and Golden State missed the playoffs at 46-36. When you're 10 games above 500, you can't make the playoffs. That seems difficult. Yeah. When you're basically beating up on all these Eastern Conference teams all season long, but they say, well, you're just too bad you're in the West, so you can't make the playoffs because the West is just better than the East. So that would have been really tough for those teams to not make it at all. So it's good to see it there. You get kind of the old versus the new on a lot of these. You get the Lakers, which have AD, who used to play for New Orleans. and LeBron James, but versus Zion Williamson's part of that, Brandon Ingram, who was part of that AD trade, those two guys going against each other, CJ McCollum also on there, but the Pelicans kind of a newer, younger team, a little bit more exciting at points, but you get to see that matchup. Sacramento, who was a lot of fun to watch last season, maybe a little bit of regression this season. They're in a kind of similar place with Jason Kidd, Mike Brown, who's a really good coach, but it feels like he kind of got him there and maybe couldn't quite get him all the way over the hump. But De'Aaron Fox, Domantas Sabonis will be a lot of fun to watch that matchup as well against the old guard in Golden State. And you'll see who can pull it out. Can Golden State, who's been playing much better at the end of the season, get the win there? And can the Lakers, could you have the Lakers Golden State fighting for that 8 seed if New Orleans wins? Does only one of them get in the playoffs? Do they both get into the playoffs? I mean, once you get in that 7-8 seed, you may technically want to play Oklahoma City more than you want to play Denver. So you'd rather be the 8 seed than the 7 seed. You could possibly say, well, we're not going to beat Denver and we just don't know about Oklahoma City. I don't know if that's fair or smart, but you could see maybe that first game that maybe the Lakers sandbag it a little bit because they know they don't have a shot against Denver and say they can beat Sacramento or Golden State and risk it. That seems like a LeBron move, the kind of confidence LeBron has, that he would say, no, the smarter move is for us to sandbag this first one, let New Orleans go up against the 2 seed in Denver, and we'll take on Oklahoma City, and we think our experience can beat them, but we'll go to a one and done, this is it game against Sacramento or Golden State. That could be a scenario. Who knows if they're crazy enough to do that?
It's not bad.
But it is a possibility. Lots of fun storylines there. Philadelphia and Miami is going to be a ton of fun to watch because, again, that 7 seeds real important. Because that 8 seed, you're playing Boston.
Boston, you're done.
And other than Jimmy Butler, no one wants to play Boston. Now, I think Philadelphia, it could be fun to see Philadelphia because this is a Philadelphia team that was a 2 or 3 seed in this conference. If Joel Embiid doesn't miss an extended period of time, Tyrese Maxey's played well, but they just don't have enough people on that roster other than Embiid. So they're a much better team now with Embiid back on the court. So that it would be like that would be Boston would hate that matchup. They could still win it, but it would suck. Whoever plays Philadelphia in the first round, it really sucks to be a 1 or a 2 seed and then have to go against a team that should be up there and you shouldn't have to meet until a second or third round in the first round because of the injury. But that'll be the case. But that Philadelphia-Miami game will be a fun one to watch. And then the second one of that shouldn't, I mean, unless Miami just really doesn't show up and Miami they haven't looked great all season long. If they really don't show up, then they could lose to Chicago or Atlanta. We know Trae Young has had magic before, and DeJounte Murray's a good player. So technically Atlanta could put a couple games together. Chicago's basically mailed it in at this point because they have so many injuries that I don't think they're necessarily even trying to get into it as much. But it'll be fun. I am not a huge fan of the under 500 teams getting the shot, but whatever, there's injuries, you can claim it. But in the West, that's going to be a lot of excitement. I'm looking forward to the play-ins in the West.
Yeah, the West you're right. I mean, this is about as sexy as you can get for a play-in. You got all-time greats in the play-in with LeBron and Steph, and you're right. You got really good storylines too. Actually in the play-in. So I think the NBA's play-ins actually this season will be as exciting as they've ever been. Let's talk about the playoff matchups.
And I'll throw you one more in there though. Zion Williamson in this series. This is Zion who's played a lot better. He's played a lot better this season. He's played a lot better. He's not being the star, but he's played a lot better. He disappeared in the in-season tournament. In that big game on TV, he completely disappeared. This is kind of his rebuttal of can he show up into a big game scenario. So this will be questions for Zion. Does he show up in this game and start to regain a little bit of that ability and that marketability where people start looking at him again saying, oh, this guy could be one of the future faces of the NBA.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I forgot about the play-in tournament the Lakers won. They're the champions of the play. Did they ever put the banner up?
Yes, they did.
The banner up?
They put the banner up. And I got it more along the line that was not their choice. I originally thought it was a terrible thing to put up, especially for the Lakers who have all these championship trophies. But, it was Adam Silver called him up and said, you know how much money we're making? Do you guys want to make more money? put up the banner and clap.
Put up the banner. Well, no, it's not, no doubt about it. They had to. They need to start showing that there's a pride in winning that tournament.
Yeah.
And some bragging rights to winning it. And that's why, it's got to be a united front. Even though some of the players may think it's silly, they got to show some pride in it, no doubt, because you're right. There's a lot of money invested in it. Okay, let's get to the actual playoff matchups. You're right. The 1 and the 2 seeds, they will play the winners of the play in the 8 and the 7 seeds. And that's the Celtics and the Knicks in the East, and that is the Thunder and the Nuggets in the West, as you mentioned. But you do have some playoff matchups. The 3 seeds versus the 6 seed in the East. You'll have the Bucks versus the Pacers. In the 4 and the 5 matchup in the East, you'll have the Cavs versus the Magic. Anything sexy in those 2 matchups early on that you can?
I mean, if Tyrese Halliburton decides to go off like he did in the in-season tournament, if Tyrese Halliburton plays at a really high level, Miles Turner's been playing well. If you knock out Milwaukee in that first round, if you knock them out,
people getting fired.
But they've already fired a coach this season and brought in Doc Rivers to be the savior. But if Doc Rivers can't get it done, and you traded for Dame and all of that, and it all just goes up in smoke in the first round to an Indiana team that's stepping up, that'll be fun. But that's one of those series that'll get more fun if Indiana wins a game on the road. If Indiana picks up one of the wins in the first 2 games and gets the home court advantage, that becomes a really interesting series to watch.
Because no pressure on Indiana at all. No pressure.
I mean, there's some because, they starting to look better, but it's Indiana. No one's really expecting them.
Yeah.
And then that Cleveland-Orlando series, that is future faces of the NBA series right there. There's a lot of good players. Paolo Banchero does not get enough credit for taking this team to the playoffs right now. So that is just going to be a fun team. You have Evan Mobley, Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell on this Cleveland team. They have some good players on that team. Franz Wagner for Orlando too. So a lot of young talent. If you want to watch that series, that is a really good matchup of a lot of young talent in the NBA right now.
I like that. On the West side, 3 seed versus the 6 seed. You got the T-Wolves versus the Suns. That's interesting because the Suns, everybody thinks the Suns can end up making a run as long as everybody stays healthy because they got a dynamic core. But the T-Wolves are that young, scary team in the West, right, Patrick? And then, of course, you got the 4 or 5 matchup, Clippers and the Mavs. Both of those are really interesting matchups that could go either way, right? Could both of these matchups go either way, in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say the Timberwolves should win. The Timberwolves are a really good team this season. Everybody gave Timberwolves crap for the trade they made for Rudy Gobert. Karl Anthony Towns missed a lot of time last year. It just never really fully meshed. It meshed this season. Karl Anthony Towns is back from injury, so those guys are going to be playing well. And Anthony Edwards is must-watch TV. He is just a really fun player to watch. So you expect this to be, as much as the Suns are, they just don't play enough defense. And they're relying on aging scorers at this point, especially Bradley Beal has not been the player they want him to be. That's not a huge shocker, but he was not the player where they needed him to be a number one. They need to basically have 3 number ones on this team. They have 2 number ones and then a number 2 or 3 and then a bunch of number 5s. Like a ton of number 5s is on this team. So there's a lot of, it's that I don't know if they're going to be able to put it together. Kevin Durant can do whatever. He's amazing. So you see what he can do with Devin Booker. We've seen him do really well in the playoffs before. Yeah. He's going to want to show off against Anthony Edwards, but I just don't think they have enough firepower against a really good Minnesota team who's going to go inside on him too. With Rudy Gobert, with Karl Anthony Towns, with Naz Reid, they're just going to go inside and just get points after points, slow the game down at points and get it to them. And then that Clippers-Dallas series is fun, sexy series. If everybody stays healthy, everybody stays on the court, just a really fun series to see what this Clippers team do. The big problem the Mavs are going to have to figure out is Russell Westbrook off the bench. Can they keep the scoring up? Can they keep the energy up when Kyrie and Luka have to start sitting and you just have this spark plug who is only going to want to run the basketball and run it from rim to rim and dunk the ball? And when you're trying to put in backup guards, can you stay in front of him and slow him down a little bit, buy yourself some time? Or the Clippers, just every time it starts to go to that bench lineup, and every time you start to get Luka and Kyrie a little tired, it's a 10-point swing the other way. You just can't have that in the series because their bench is better. Tim Hardaway Jr. versus Russell Westbrook. I know we wouldn't have said this a year ago, but you'd say I'll take Russell Westbrook as my 6th man any day of the week on that one. And then it's James Harden versus Kyrie. is always fun to see those two guys. Luka versus Harden, like that matchup in there, and the defense. Luka is going to be putting up a ton of shots in this series. He'll have some good games, some bad games, but it'll be a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, no, those West matchups are going to be really, really fun. Yeah, the West, period. What are you talking about? The play-ins? What are you talking about? The initial matchups between 3 and the 6 and the 4 and the 5. Yeah, they're going to be spectacular. All right, so nice little breakdown there. We'll have more, of course, more detailed breakdown about these matchups coming up tomorrow, of course, because we'll have the start of the play-ins, but also as we get more clarity on who those 8 and 7 seeds are for the West and the East. All right, so we'll push Rod's rant to next segment. We also got some Cowboys talk in the next segment too. So we'll push my Wemby rant to next segment. We'll get into that. My last case, it's my last case. Last time I'll stand on the soapbox and argue that Wemby should win Defensive Player of the Year in the NBA. And when are the awards given out in the NBA? When do they come out? When
I
they
don't
start
know.
coming out?
I haven't even looked.
Is it the first week of the postseason? Is it the first week of the actual playoffs?
I feel like
that time, or is that the end of the? They wait to the end of the season. I think they wait to the end of the season. Actually, maybe frustratingly so. Maybe they wait to the end of the postseason because they don't want to take up too much of the limelight. I'll look that up.
Yeah, we'll look up in the break. I have to figure out. They may trickle them out over the pace of the thing too. I don't think
something tells me they don't have like a set date where.
I don't think they do the NFL honors thing where they do it all at one time. I don't think they do that.
Okay. All right. Well, anyway, I'll make the case for Wemby to win Defensive Player of the Year in the NBA as a rookie, which a lot of people don't think. And, of course, because of their record, a lot of people disagree with that take. But I'll make it one last time, even though it was my take to begin the season. Before the season started, I made that prediction, and we'll see if it comes to fruition. So we'll do that. We'll also get into some NFL news, notes, and nuggets about the Dallas Cowboys. All of that and more when the Rodcast returns right here, featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn Rod Davis coming back on the horn. Hey, what's up, folks? Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers here. Let's talk about our friends over at Apple Leasing because right now you might be driving in your car right now, sitting in traffic, maybe a little frustrated. Maybe you're frustrated with your car, not just with the traffic. Maybe your car's a little old and run down. Maybe it's time for a new one. Maybe you missed that new car smell. Maybe your car just doesn't fit your lifestyle anymore. Maybe you need something bigger. Maybe you need something smaller. It doesn't matter really what your needs are for a new car. If you need one, you need to reach out to my friends over at Apple Leasing. Now, Apple Leasing has the ability to put you in any make or model vehicle that you want. The professionals over at Apple Leasing can help you get the price you want, the payment you want on the car you want. And all it takes is one phone call or one click on Apple Leasing's website, and you'll get a quote on any make or model vehicle that you want. They can even give you an estimate on the value of your trade-in right over the phone. They have what they call a simple interest easy lease, and the whole point is to make things simple and easy for you so that you have more flexibility, which is going to give you more possibilities and options to help you find the vehicle that fits you best, but more importantly, the vehicle that fits your budget best. They understand that your time is valuable, and that's why they want to save you time and save you money. They're going to save you both. All right, they're going to save you time, save you money, and find you tremendous value over at Apple Leasing. Everything seems overpriced these days. That's why leasing makes more sense than ever. You're only paying for the part of the car you're actually using. Apple Leasing gets all the same discounts, all the same incentives that the dealers do, except my friends at Apple Leasing, they like to pass those savings on to you, the customer. So give them a call, 512-346-9977. That's 512-346-9977. Or visit appleleasing.com. That's appleleasing.com. All right, let's get to Rod's rant today here. I want to talk about my man Victor Wembanyama, who is done for the season, of course, because the Spurs did not make the postseason. But he did make a great case during the year for Defensive Player of the Year. I said before the season started, he's going to come into the league as potentially the best defensive player in the league. And I do believe he's proven that he's definitely one of the best defensive players. But can he win Defensive Player of the Year as a rookie? Here are some of the the rankings for Victor Wembanyama among league leaders in some of these defensive categories. So among players who've appeared in at least 65 games, Wemby ranks third in defensive estimated plus minus. He leads the NBA in total blocks per game, and block rate by significant margins. Also, I love this that he's only contested. How about this? He's only contested 41% of shots at the rim. It's actually a pretty low number considering he's the league leader in blocks. Compare that to Gobert. Rudy Gobert is at about 50% of contest. That's the percentage of shots he contests at the rim. And Chet Holmgren, who's second overall with 66 fewer blocks, by the way, than Wemby. He contests 57% of the offense's at the rim field goal attempts when he's on the court. So Wemby's not even contesting as many shots at the rim as some of his peers, and yet his block rates, or at least his effectiveness as a rim protector, is through the roof. Like it's phenomenal. Also, and Patrick brought this up at one point during the year when we were talking about Wemby. Victor also freakishly recovers 68% of his blocks. His team does. Sorry, the team does. The team recovers 68% of his blocks. Minnesota recovers 58% of Rudy Gobert's blocks, which is, like I said, that's a freaky stat. On top of his defensive rebound rate, which is third highest in the league, this is big in San Antonio, basically kind of limiting team second chance points when he's in the game. So he's kind of obviously a game changer in that respect, because his blocks, because they're just such I don't know, kind of dominant blocks, but in the way that he blocks them, because he doesn't necessarily swat them away, because at times he doesn't have to do that.
Yeah.
Because he's just, he has such length and such wingspan that he can deflect balls without necessarily having to swat them away. And I guess deflection works better than a block. It's all considered a block, but when he swats them, it's more likely to go to the team. But when he deflects them, it seems like it's more likely that his team or himself ends up recovering.
Yeah, it's controlled. It's controlled blocks because he's able to, instead of flying across or jumping really high and just not having as much control in it, he's usually not doing either one of those things. Can kind of get his hands straight up in the air, get the block, either tap it off the glass to himself or tap it to a teammate, or just at times basically catch the ball as it's being thrown up and bring it down himself. And it's not every time, because there's times you get in the post and you block it and it goes right back to the guy and he puts up another shot and it gets blocked again, or you throw it around.
Right.
So those happen as well, especially inside where he's gonna get some blocks. But those those are very, very hard to maintain on your own. But a lot of these ones where guys are driving, they're getting the ball back.
Yeah. And his presence is even felt outside the paint. Obviously, in the paint, protecting the rim, he's elite in that aspect. But even outside, because of his just freakish range, wingspan, and arm length, his 3.5 deflections per 36 minutes ranks second among all centers. Rudy Gobert's at 1.7 deflections per 36 minutes. So even outside the paint, he is just disrupting the offense's flow consistently, because you got to move the basketball around this freak, and it just affects the way you move the basketball. You just can't. The passing lanes are just not the same when that guy's on the floor. And this is also something that we talked about, I think, earlier this season, Patrick. The Spurs ranked 22nd in defensive rating overall. This is what they rank overall as a team. But when Wemby's on the court, they skyrocket to being top 5 in defensive rating. They're elite when he's on the court. They improve 7.3 points per 100 possessions when he's on the court. According to Cleaning the Glass, no player who's logged at least 1,000 minutes has had a more positive impact on their team's defensive rating. Essentially, they foul less, they rebound better when he's on the floor. They're just a better defensive team overall. Now, I'm not saying that Rudy Gobert is an awesome Rudy. I'll give you a Rudy Gobert stat just to let you know we're not playing too much of favorites because Rudy Gobert, he could win it, and there are a lot of people think that he should win it because his team is a lot better. Of course, they are a playoff team, and there are 159 players who averaged at least 25 minutes while appearing in at least 50 games this season. Among those, Gobert's 106.1 defensive rating ranks first. Meanwhile, basically, and you go look at the opposing field goal percentages against Rudy Gobert, they drop precipitously. So he also has some stats that would back him up being considered the best defensive player in the league. But to me, I think Wemby's I think Wemby right now is doing things defensively that I haven't ever even seen a player do, and that includes a guy like Rudy Gobert. So Rudy Gobert has been great, and he could easily win it. I'd make the case for Wemby because I think eye test wise, and at least down the stretch, Wemby's been doing things defensively that we haven't seen. Remember, I brought up the point that there are data scientists now saying that Wemby is essentially destroying some of their algorithms and their statistical models because he's doing things that the basically that the data didn't anticipate. The example they brought up were wide open threes, and right now Wemby is leading the NBA in blocks against wide open 3-pointers. And usually when they determine a wide open 3-pointer, players don't have the ability to block it because it's wide open. They have determined based on the amount of space and the feet that they have that they're wide open. And they said they haven't had players, many of them, be able to block wide open threes. And Wemby's doing it with now regularity, enough regularity where it's disrupting the algorithm. So they have to like tweak it. And these are like Wemby centric stats now, where they're going to have to come up with a Wemby stat, and it'll probably be like that blocked open 3-pointers. He'll lead the league in that. He'll lead the league in deterrent shots, freaky stuff like that. And I think that's why I would make the case that Wemby should win Defensive Player of the Year.
No, I think it is. The biggest question is, do the voters vote on record, and do the voters really take him out of it because how he began the season, the limited minutes, where they were still trying to figure out what they were doing, where he was playing 3 more and they had Zach Collins in the post. So his block numbers could have been even bigger then, but he was playing away from the basket a lot more because they were trying to play and trying to figure him out because they were more worried about it. There's also been a few games where he was taken advantage of, and Embiid took him to school, and then Şengün took him to school. So he had a couple games where he didn't look great, where teams were able to go after him. So I get the reasons against him. I just feel that you're trying to find reasons against Wemby and not trying to find reasons for Gobert other than, well, Gobert's good. We know he's good. I get it. I'm not opposed to Gobert winning it. At the same point, I feel if you watch both teams play all season, say Gobert's a good defender and Wemby's doing electric things that no one's ever done before.
Exactly.
And so I get it, but I feel like it's more of the line. They want to say all the reasons why Wemby shouldn't and not look at any reasons why Gobert shouldn't, which there are reasons for that as well. So I get it. Gobert's not had great games throughout the season. Gobert, gets to play with a lot of other big players. Their defensive rating is not bad when he goes off the court as well. So the defense of the team is just a lot better overall. They can funnel things to him a lot better. So I get it. I'm not opposed to. I won't be upset if Rudy Gobert wins it, but I'm with Victor Wembanyama. He can win that this year because his time's up. This is it.
Yeah.
And this is the last one he gets to win. And I looked it up in the break. I don't believe they've announced when the awards will be given away this year. Okay. But last year they started with Defensive Player of the Year was the first award they gave away. They gave that away mid-April. So we're right around the time they did it near the end of the season. And they kind of just they announced all the finalists at one point, and then they just slowly trickled them out over the postseason.
Yeah. All right. Well, I don't know if he will win it, but I think he should. There are a lot of people now. Remember, we played the sound of Draymond Green saying that he changed his mind. He believes that Wemby is the best defensive player of the year. And yeah, I did find that guy who basically was keeping track of the blocked open threes. And he did say Victor Wembanyama does lead the NBA in blocked open threes, but he also pointed out that Rudy Gobert is right there among the league leaders too in blocked open 3-pointers. So I'll throw it out there, Rudy Gobert. He can make a really good case for Rudy Gobert too. I think both you can make a case for either one, and you'd be just. I mean, both of those guys easily could win it, and you'd be justified in voting for those guys. But like I said, I'll pick Wemby just because I think Wemby's doing things that I've never seen defensively on an NBA court before. But Rudy Gobert is, like I said, I mean,
No, and I mean,
he's tried and true. He's a proven commodity.
The biggest one for me is always when you look at how bad that Spurs defense is with him off the court, and when you look at how good it is with him on it, that difference of their defensive efficiency is mind blowing. If you want to say who is the MVP of defense, the most valuable defender, the MVD, if you want to go with
like that,
he is
MVD.
By far the MVD because there's no one more valuable or team's defense than Victor Wembanyama is. The question is, does that make him the best defensive player? That's where you can have the debate. But if you say who's the most valuable to their team's defense, it's by far and away Victor Wembanyama.
I agree with that. But you're right about that. Victor will have his time. So maybe you can give it to Rudy this time and Victor, because Victor's going to end up breaking a whole lot of records.
But we can say odds are a Frenchman's going to win it.
Yeah, who knew that? People talk a lot about French and the French culture not being tough enough, and yet, hey man, the two best defensive players in the NBA, Frenchmen. Also, Victor, I didn't realize this. You know what? We can share this in What the Stats. We got What the Facts coming up next. I was just about to give you a random Victor Wembanyama fact. Why would I do that when I can just share it with you next segment? All right, so we got What the Facts coming up. I got a freaky Wemby stat for you. We'll share that on the other side and lots of other facts and stats from around the sports world. All that and more right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers coming back on the horn. Hey, what's up, folks? Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers here. We all know Austin is a great city. That's why people keep moving here, making traffic conditions a little bit worse, but that's okay because as the city continues to grow and thrive, so do our friends over at Ironworkers Local Union 482. Many of the iconic landmarks you're driving by right now, or maybe you're parked in front of right now in traffic, were actually created and built by the hands and skilled craftsmanship of Ironworkers Local Union 482, like the Pennybacker Bridge or DK Stadium. And right now, the folks at Ironworkers Local 482 are working on another big project right here in Central Texas. They're hiring over 3,000 people to help them complete this project, and they're offering competitive wages, competitive benefits, a pension plan. They're even offering training for unskilled labor through their apprenticeship program. So if you've been thinking about another exciting employment opportunity, or maybe a refreshing career change, or maybe you want to feel valued by your employer, you can become a valued member of this prestigious organization, Ironworkers Local 482. And right now, it's the perfect time for you to do it. Like I said, they're hiring over 3,000 people right now, and they're offering great benefits, competitive benefits, and competitive wages, and a pension plan. If you're thinking to yourself, you don't have the skills to change professions, they will teach you the skills. All they need from you is the willingness, and they need a little work ethic, and I'm sure you have plenty of that. So right now is the perfect time for you to go on over to ironworkers482.org. That's when you can inquire and apply for all of these numerous positions. You can maximize your potential and accept the challenge of becoming the best version of yourself by applying online at ironworkers482.org. That's ironworkers482.org. All right, here we go with what the facts, what the stats. I told you guys I had a nice Wimby stat for you. Here it is. Victor Wembanyama made 128 3-pointers in 71 games this season. He fell one short of tying Gary Neal for the most by a rookie in Spurs history. Crazy. And he shut him down early, didn't he?
He
shut
didn't
him down?
play. He did not play in the last game of the season. But yeah,
So they,
I mean, his 3-point shooting got way better. His shot to selection got way better as the season went on. He will break
that's
that. He will break
crazy.
that next season. His usage rate is pretty high, and that's why I say he will break that record because he'll get more and more confident in the 3-point shot as well. But
Oh
yeah, next
yeah.
season his 3-point shooting will be a problem for the league continuing going forward because he's. I mean,
He's a problem.
he just kept getting better throughout the season, and that's. If you were somebody else, you kind of want it to be a fluke, but for the Spurs fans, it's a good thing. It's a good thing.
Yeah, no, he is no fluke, man. No, he is. That's no fluke at all. This dude is just a freak, more like it, not fluke, but freak of nature. So there you go. That's another Victor Wembanyama. I knew I had a random one. I'll give you since we're giving stats, I'll give you another, and we'll come back and talk more about Scottie Scheffler's dominant win and the Masters, his second win at the Masters now. But he has 3 wins now in 2024, 0 rounds over par. 0 rounds over par. Like we haven't seen anybody playing golf this good at this high level since Tiger in his prime. That's what all the golf enthusiasts are telling us. And as a matter of fact, we're gonna have Omar Uresti, pro golfer, on Wednesday at the Turn. We'll also have Charlie Wilson on of Callahan's General Store, and I'm sure they'll be talking about this historic performance by Scottie Scheffler, which we'll talk more about on the other side. So there you go. A couple of what the facts, what the stats. There, I got a bunch of Wimbies. I still can give you more Wimby stats. They're just there's so many of them. They're really, and Spurs fans are great. They're keeping track of them, and you really just got to follow some of the great Spurs accounts, and they'll keep up with them. At Airless Jordan is one of them. Jordan Howenstein. Is he the Howenstein or Howenstein? So I apologize if I got it wrong. He throws out some good ones. Here's one. Victor Wembanyama is the 10th player in NBA history to average 20, 10, and 3. 2010 and 3 and 3 blocks in the season. Kareem Ewing, Hayes, Lanier, McAdoo, Mourning, Shaq, Hakeem, and David Robinson are the other players. Wemby is the only player to do it in less than 30 minutes per game. He did it as a rookie.
Jeez. And this stats. I mean, this has also been a year for Spurs fans to just look at stats instead of the record. So
that's true. That's true. It's a good point. They're not talking about basketball. I was like, no, let's just throw out Wemby stats because they're so fun and freaky. They really are. They're fun and freaky though. He ends his first season as the first rookie in NBA history with 1,500 points, at least 1,500 points, at least 250 assists, and at least 250 blocks. Only 4 players ever have reached those numbers at any point in their careers: Kareem, Hakeem, David Robinson, Victor.
It is. And what's crazy about it was there was a point in the season where people were getting mad because no one was passing him the ball enough.
No, dude. And also, I understand that too. I get it all, man. He's definitely a generational talent. All right, we come back. We'll get into Scottie Scheffler's reign as the top golfer in the world right now, and how long can this thing last? Because right now it seems like there's some longevity to it. Winning his second Masters in 3 years. We'll also talk about Rodney Terry. He's on fire, in fuego right now. 3 transfer portal commitments in the span of a few hours. Talk about a Sunday fun day. We'll address it all right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn Rod Davis coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm lifetime Longhorn Rod Davis. Patrick Davis, also known as the Idealionaire, coming up with the musically themed days of the week. And Monday is a Smooth Soul Monday, meant to make it a smooth transition from the enjoyable, relaxing weekend to the hustle and bustle of the work week. So we appreciate Patrick making that easy transition for us on a Smooth Soul Monday. And he builds to kind of a crescendo toward the end of the show. So it's smoother early on in the show. And then, as you know, we get toward the end, it's a little bit more, it's a little more oomph to it, right?
Yeah, it's
what
2 hours in. You see
the vibe,
play
right?
some play some
vibe,
lakeside, got a little bit more bass into it, a little more side bass, and just building.
Yeah, because you started out with Gladys Knight and the Pips.
Yeah, I started out with the Delphonics.
The Delphonics, yes.
The Delphonics, then Gladys Knight, and
then Gladys. You were real slow,
you know, amp up, you know.
You
go more old school, and then get in a little bit, you know.
Well, because now you're up. I mean, back at 6 a.m, so I mean, you might not be quite up. You might be just getting your coffee, just you're getting around. You're starting to pick out what you're gonna wear in the morning. Maybe you're about to brush your teeth, take a shower. But at 8, everybody should be up. You should be up. Doesn't matter how loud you are. That's why you can't be. People who do yard work and before like 8 a.m. like that's always considered. That's the violation of the G code in the neighborhood. Like, just come on, man.
Yeah,
don't be doing that. People ain't up before 8. After 8, you can do yard work.
You had the lawnmower in the yard, dark still, just waiting for it to get light. Come on now.
I agree. It's like, no, that ain't right. No, if it's still dark, you can't be doing yard work. I hate when I hear some yard work going on at like 7 in the morning. I'm like, come on, man. I know you wanted to get to the yard work early, or I know you probably got a yard crew out there and they're getting to it early, and I appreciate that. But I'm with Patrick. I think 8 o'clock. That's when the light comes up, when the sun comes up, then you can start getting to the yard work, because then everybody's up. But people work from home now, so they sleep in a little bit more than they used to.
Yeah,
everybody used to be up a lot earlier. I bet they did research now to study about what time people are getting up. I bet people are sleeping in a little bit later than they used to. Just because you don't have to get up and get dressed. Not everybody gets up and get dressed if they're working from home. You're working in your pajama pants.
You can eat breakfast while you're working. You don't got to eat breakfast and then go. And
you know what I mean? So I think that's part of it too. Anyway, there you go. That's my man Patrick hooking us up on a Smooth Soul Monday. We will get into Scotty Scheffler's dominance right now in the golf world, winning his second major in 3 years. We'll also get to Rodney Terry's Sunday Fun Day. He had a hell of a weekend, and he's having a smooth transition to the work week as well, because got 3 portal commitments in the span of a few hours, actually, on Sunday. So already reshaping this Texas men's basketball team. We'll talk about both of those. We'll go behind the burnt orange curtain next segment, and that will be a discussion about the second spring scrimmage, the last scrimmage before the spring game coming up this weekend. So we'll get into all of the news, notes, and nuggets coming from a lot of different sources. Our friends Chip Brown over at Horns 24/7 did a really good job. Folks over at Inside Texas, Eric and Eileen, my friends over at On Texas Football, on TexasFootball.com, on their YouTube channel, Bobby Bird and Jerry Hamilton also did a really good job compiling some of the news, notes, and nuggets, some of the reports from the scrimmage. So we'll get you updated with those and talk about who stood out at the Texas spring scrimmage. Before we get to the Horn headlines, my man Patrick Davis will get you updated, informed, and educated on the big topics of the day. Also, let's let my man Patrick let you know what the topic is for the big fat poll of the day. And I thought it was an interesting debate. It always is. Patrick, let the people know what the topic is for the big fat poll of the day.
Big fat poll of the day today, 512-477-3776 is the text line number. Big fat poll of the day today. Which Texas NBA team will win their next championship first? There are 3 distinct levels right now. After finishing the season, the Mavs are in the playoffs, could win it this season. Rockets just made the playoffs. They are at 500 right now. And the Spurs are near the bottom of the pack at 22-60, but they do have a Victor Wembanyama. So where do you see each team going? Do you see one team that has a ceiling? Do 2 teams have ceilings and one could win the championship? Who's going to get there first? Could all 3 win championships with this roster or beginning of roster construction? That is the question. Who do you think wins the NBA championship next from the state of Texas? Is the question for the big fat poll of the day.
Yeah, I like it. Like I said, I think Dallas is closer just because they have a already proven generational talent, and Luka, who's a veteran, will probably finish second in the MVP voting this year. And they have Kyrie. You've even talked about it, Patrick. I've heard NBA insiders say that's the most skilled backcourt potentially in the history of the NBA. You got Kyrie, who's a guy that can, hit clutch shots for you, who can be a closer for you if you need to. Yeah, I mean, a true number two, a true, Robin to Luka being the Batman. I don't think Jason Kidd is the right coach to lead them to a championship. I think he's a good coach, but not necessarily a championship level coach for them. I see him more like what Mark Jackson was for Golden State before they hired Steve Kerr. And I think if they hire a new coach and then, add some more pieces around Luka and Kyrie, that they may be closer right now. I know Wemby and the Spurs are inevitably going to win a title. It's just his talent is just too tremendous. And, he's just at the infancy, right, of this talent. So they're going to win one at one point. I just don't know how long the process of construction around him we're going to take. And I don't think anybody, maybe even the Spurs, knows what it's going to look like because we've never had a player provide a template. There's no template for how to build a roster around a player like Wemby, because we've never seen a player like Wemby. So maybe that takes a little bit more time than I thought. So I just don't know how long it's going to take for the Spurs. I think the Rockets is the toughest argument to make, that they could win a title before San Antonio or before the Mavs, because they don't have a generational talent just yet. Mavs and Spurs both have one. So those are the two best arguments. And I'll go with Mavs right now just because they got the second piece already.
Yeah.
Right. The Spurs don't have the second piece already. They got Wemby, but then they got to get the second piece and third piece. What the Mavs are missing is the third and the fourth and the fifth pieces of the role players and maybe the head coach. Seems like the Spurs, they got the head coach because Pop, of course, is a GOAT, and they got Wemby, but they're missing the second, third, fourth pieces potential. You said they might actually have a third or fourth piece on there. They're definitely missing that number two guy. I'll go with Dallas because they got the number one and the number two. They need the head coach and they need the supporting cast. I think that may be easier for them to get. You can get that in like an off season. You can get that in like one season, right? The right coach, and then they build the right pieces. Finding the number two guy for Wemby, like you said, it's not in this draft, you don't think.
No.
And so it's maybe in free agency or maybe in another draft. And then is Pop going to be around long enough?
And who do you hire after Pop?
Right, to realize the championship construction with Wemby. I don't know if he sticks around for that long. And how long is that going to take? 4-5 years?
That's the question. And sure. That's always the thing, is how much do you leverage your future to win?
Go all in.
And go all in. And you have all these draft picks, so you can make the deals. We saw Oklahoma City stockpile draft picks and then never even really need to go trade them all and go get that big player. They're the number one seed in the West right now, finishing the season, and they still have a ton of draft picks. So that's the thing, is the Spurs could try to make a trade to bring in somebody. There are a few guys out there that you could look at and say maybe, but none of them are necessarily franchise guys. So can they be a solid number two? Can they be that number two guy on a roster? That's more the question of what you're looking for now. But it's, you're kind of taking a crapshoot on any of it, and you can't miss, because if you miss, you fall into that problem of you are now in a range where you're never going to get a top draft pick anymore, but you're also just not getting to that championship window, and you sit in that 6-7 seed kind of range, and you just can't get over the hump. That's where you don't want to end up. So it'll be interesting to see what they do this offseason. They'll probably most likely try to be aggressive, but we'll talk about it with Rodney Terry. You don't want to go and sign a couple. You want to go attack, and when it goes, you want it to roll downhill quickly. You want to be able to start getting recruits or start getting transfers like Rodney Terry. You want to start getting free agents or trades. You want to make it all flow together, because if you put together a puzzle and you start to put it all together, but you don't have all the pieces, it doesn't matter that you've got some of them.
Yeah, totally agree with you on that. Exercise, I'm with that. I wonder when the Spurs are going to get aggressive, like you said, when it'll happen. Maybe they're ready. Maybe they're not ready to do it yet. Maybe they want to have another offseason to build, and then the next offseason, or maybe they see, I don't know what free agency looks like in the next couple of years in the NBA. That'll be big to determining what free agency looks like, what the next draft class after this one looks like. So I'll go with the Mavs right now, but it really is a compelling conversation. So that's the big fat poll of the day. Patrick always provides us good conversation with that. We'll get back to the NBA discussion next hour. We'll talk about the play-ins and the playoffs. But before we talk about Texas hoops, the men specifically getting 3 portal commitments, we'll talk about Scottie Scheffler's reign of dominance right now in golf, because it's Tiger-esque. It's Tiger-esque. There's no question about it. Before we do that, though, let's let my man Patrick get us informed, updated, and educated with the big headlines of the day in our Horn Headlines.
All right, your Horn Headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. Texas baseball got a home run from D. Kennedy on Saturday in the 9th inning, and then rode an 8-run 9th inning on Sunday to get a much-needed series win over Houston 2-1 after a slow start on Friday. They'll be back in action on Tuesday against UT Rio Grande Valley. And Texas softball swept their series against Baylor behind Reese Atwood's 10 RBIs on the weekend. They will face Kansas next weekend. In golf, Scottie Scheffler maintained his dominance of the game with a 4-stroke victory at the Masters. This is Scheffler's second Masters victory and his 3rd tour win of the year. Scheffler now has a top 10 finish in 8 of the 9 events he has played in this season. Texas men's basketball was busy yesterday, bringing in 3 transfers as they rebuild the roster for next season. Texas landed 2 players from Indiana State, forward Jason Kent, who averaged 13.5 points and 8.1 rebounds per game, and guard Julian Larry, who shot 46% from 3 last season. The Longhorns also grabbed 6'6" guard Tremont Mark from Arkansas, who's a dynamic scorer on both ends of the court. In the NBA, the playoff seedings and play-in tournament are set. The Mavericks finished with the 5 seed and will be taking on the Clippers starting next weekend. Well, the Thunder were able to take on the number 1 seed in the West a year after failing to make it to the playoffs after losing to the Timberwolves in the play-in. The Rockets finished their season at 41-41, a marked improvement over their 22-60 season a year ago. And the Spurs finished at 22-60 for the second time in a row, and will have to finish and will have the 5th best odds in the draft lottery. And in Major League Baseball, the Astros were able to take the series with the Rangers 2-1 after a disastrous start, giving up 12 runs in the first 6 innings. Altuve and Tucker both had multi-home run games, and the Astros were finally able to win their first series of the season. The Astros are back in action tonight facing the Braves, while the Rangers begin their series with the Tigers, with pregame beginning at 5 p.m. right here on the Horn, and that is your Horn Headlines.
All right, thank you, Patrick, for the Horn Headlines. We appreciate those as always. Let's get to the Scottie Scheffler discussion, because what he's doing right now is just amazing. And there are a couple of stats that I want to start with that I think really kind of bring his dominance into perspective, gives us great perspective on his dominance, I should say. I gave the stat earlier, but he had 3 wins in 2024. Including the Masters, but 0 rounds over par. So he is just playing his best golf overall, period, as a player. But then the way he handles pressure, because that's what the individual sports, I think, which makes them different, and that they're different in a lot of ways. But one of the reasons that they're so different from team sports is, and team sports, at least you do have, and there are certain aspects to team sports where you do have the individual pressure when you're at the plate, as a baseball player, right? When you're pitching on the mound, when you're the quarterback, you do get more attention. There's more limelight on you. So you do feel that individualized pressure, but there's still your teammates, because it's a team sport, that will help you with that burden. You can share that burden with your teammates. There is none of that in individual sports. And that burden is I think it's even more so magnified when you are considered the best in the world. And when you're the best in the world, right, the expectations are immense for you to perform at that standard consistently. And especially when you go to what is considered the Super Bowl of golf, or considered your premier event, and you are the best, all right, coming in, and you are the odds-on favorite coming in to that premier event, and you still win convincingly, that means you're in a different stratosphere. That's where Scottie Scheffler is now. He's only the 3rd golfer in the last 40 years to win a Masters as a favorite. Favorites usually don't perform up to expectation. I mean, it just doesn't happen that way. Hell, in a lot of sports, it really doesn't necessarily always work out that way. But in golf specifically, because of the immense pressure that is put on the individual in that situation on that stage, the magnitude of the magnitude of the sport, right? The magnitude of that moment, and he's only the third golfer behind Tiger Woods and Fred Couples to win the Masters as a favorite in the last 40 years. He closed right before the Masters at plus 500 odds to win the Masters. It was the shortest odds to win the Masters since Tiger in '05. And it was the shortest odds to win any major since Tiger's U.S. Open win in 2008. He's won now, you go 9 wins in the last 26 months, and 2 of them have been Masters. And like I said, he's not just winning, he's winning convincingly. He's the first player in history to win Masters by 3 or more strokes twice in a 3-year span. So it's not as he's just winning it, he's winning it in a convincing fashion, leaving no doubt, Patrick, that he is the best golfer in the world. And here's the question that I pose. All right, is there a someone, an athlete right now, period? I know this is easier to do for individual sports, individual athletes, than for guys in team sports, but we can apply it to both. Who is better at their sport right now than Scottie Scheffler is at golf? Is there anybody better at their sport than Scottie Scheffler is at golf? Patrick Mahomes is really damn good at football. I mean, people are saying that he's on the court, he's on track to be a GOAT, to be better than Tom Brady. All right, and when it's all said and done, he's got the greatest start to a career, arguably in the history of team sports. And Patrick Mahomes isn't winning the Super Bowl by more than one score. I mean, he's barely squeaking by, winning in overtime, right? Winning by one score on game-winning drives and fourth-quarter comebacks. Tom Brady's winning like that, too, on game-winning field goals and fourth-quarter comebacks, and these are the GOATs. I mean, he's winning the Masters by more than 3 strokes.
Yeah. No, it's
the favorite.
It's ridiculous. And what really shows what his game is and his mental fortitude in this game is in round 3, hole 10, he double bogeys, hole 11, he bogeys. And that's a place where a lot of golfers, you're in the lead, you're past the cut. This is where it starts to go downhill. He eagles on 13. And just everything's okay again. And all of a sudden he's right back on track again. And if you just say that type of golf where you just say, no, I'm just going to keep playing my game. I'm just going to keep going. And I know that if I keep going this right direction, I'll come back and I'll win. And never having that doubt in your mind that it starts to go away, never really changing your swing or anything else in there because you just not feeling that you have to start playing super aggressive at points because you're trying to make up those last shots. It's remarkable to see what he can do. It's unfortunate that it makes it somewhat more boring to watch the game because there was no real drama at the end of it. You just said, well, how many strokes is he going to win by? But on the other end, he's doing something that as of right now, depending on how long it goes, it'll be talked about for a very long time.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, that's a great point about it. I mean, the longevity that could exist here, because I believe, if I make sure I go back and I get this stat correct, yes, he is the 4th youngest ever to win a Masters a second time, behind Tiger Woods, Jack Nicklaus, and Ballesteros, I believe is the other one. But I mean, so he's young. He's a baby in golf years, and fewest career starts needed to win his second Masters. Since 1936, Horton Smith won 2 of his first 3 editions ever contested. It's just freaky, and we'll. I don't know if you got the sound, the audio here, Patrick, but okay, you do have it. So thank you, Patrick. Patrick is awesome. He's the real MVP for a reason. So I think one of the most underrated stories about Scottie Scheffler's ascent now has been the putting coach that he went out of his way to go find and acquire. Because remember, at one point last season, he has a fatal flaw in his game. He's one of the worst putters on the tour, but he is one of the best, obviously, ball strikers and one of the best players all around. But his tour, if you can look at his putting on the tour, it was among the worst in all of golf, period. And he was in a bit of a conundrum, and this was, I believe, around the Ryder Cup last year. So it was around September or something like that, 2023. And he wanted to hire renowned putting coach Phil Kenyon. And he had basically been admiring him from afar and talked to a lot of guys about his coaching philosophy and his technique. And he wanted to hire Phil Kenyon, but Scottie Scheffler is such a good guy. The reports were he didn't want to offend his longtime coach, Randy Smith, by bringing in another coach. Is like basically like, Randy, you couldn't fix my putting, man. I got to bring in somebody else who can. So he's a little bit offended by it. He had to go to Randy and talk to him because it was something that was heavy on his heart, man. This is a man that is kind of led by his Christian faith, talks about how much his family means to him, says that golf is just a job to him. It's not something he's obsessed with. So he's a people person. Those connections matter to him. And he said, quote, "It's hard to describe what it's like having somebody like Randy. He taught me for almost 20 years every single aspect of the game. And so for me to have to bring in somebody else could have been a shot to his ego. And he may not have wanted me to do it, but Randy sat there and he said, you know what? I think it's the right time." He said, Phil is also a guy that doesn't have a big ego. He just wants what's best for his players. I'm really, really fortunate to have both of those guys on my team. Guys, we talk about ego all the time becoming a huge part, actually the downfall of a lot of players and a lot of organizations. Take the Dallas Cowboys, for example. Were they not supposed to have the greatest dynasty potentially in the history of the NFL? Jimmy Johnson and Jerry Jones couldn't put their egos to the side. If they had, how many Super Bowls would they have won in a row? Four Super Bowls in a row, something like that. But egos, right? One guy's an ego. He wants credit for it. The other guy's an ego. Hey, it's my team. Egos, worlds collide. Boom, blows everything up. Here you have two great coaches who are deciding, no, my ego. We got a great player here, man. And we can both work together and compromise and bring the best of both worlds together. My coaching with your coaching, my putting knowledge with your expertise with the overall game. Scottie Scheffler can be the greatest player potentially in the history of the game. They put their egos to the side, and look what's happening now with Scottie Scheffler. Scottie Scheffler was asked about what happened with his play. Now, this is back in 2023. This is back when he hired Phil Kenyon, or right around the time he was about to hire him. He was working with him leading up to the Ryder Cup. Here is what Scottie Scheffler said Phil Kenyon told him about his putting and why his putting was essentially the tragic flaw in his game.
Yeah, well, I mean, basically, he just told me I sucked. Couldn't believe I ever won a tournament with how I putted. That's what you want to hear, right? No, on a serious note, I had a feeling at what I was doing wrong. It was something that my suspicions were kind of answered. It was just I was trying to fix it in the complete wrong way. To get into the details of it will take a little bit of time, but it's really very simple. The way I moved the putter through the ball, I was kind of fighting the putter, the toe rising on the putter as I went through. And so sometimes I'd miss contact a little bit in the heel. And in order for me to try to keep my putter head low, the way I would do it is I feel everything in my hands. And what I would do is I would lower my hands. But when I lowered my hands, it actually caused the toe of the putter to go higher and higher. So as the year went on, my hands were getting lower and lower, and the problems getting worse and worse. And so it was something I couldn't figure out. And it was preventing me from hitting as many putts online as I should have. Like I said, this year I really did hit a lot of good putts. Now I feel like I'm much more consistent hitting my start line, especially in my practice. I mean, I see the ball rolling end over end a lot more often than I did about a month ago, and it's exciting.
Coaches, what I always say about coaches, they're just problem solvers. Just go solve the problem. Phil Kenyon came in, solved his putting problem, and here's the scary part, guys. He's just figured out his putting in the last 6 months. Basically, last 6 months, he's finally figured out his putting pretty much, right? Because he just started working with him in like the late September, right? So you got October, November, December, January, February, March, April. So you know, about the last 6 months or so, he's really started to figure out his putting. That is a scary thought that he is now he doesn't have a flaw in his game, really. And that's what we're watching now. No flaw in his game. So that's really, really impressive. Okay, There you go. Enough for Scotty Scheffler. Let's talk about Rodney Terry and those 3 portal commitments. He had a hell of a Sunday fun day, Patrick. He got 2 commitments from Indiana State transfers. One, Jason Kent, who's a wing player. The other, Julian Larry, who is kind of a role player for them, but he ended up being a really pivotal piece for Texas if he ends up continuing to improve. And then they have, which is probably the star of these this transfer portal commitments on Sunday, Tremont Mark, who is a scoring guard who really can light it up, just a natural scorer. Coming from Arkansas, was at U of H prior to that, but that's a guy that can light it up for Texas. But they get 3 transfer portal commitments. Rodney Terry already starting to reshape this basketball roster.
Yeah, he's trying to reshape everything and build it back up. And I think one of the things he saw last season, it was the height was a problem in a lot of these games. You get Jason Kent, who's 6'8", Mark is 6'6", even Julian Larry is 6'3". So you're not bringing in another 6-foot player. So if Tyrese Hunter does come back for another year, you're not necessarily getting stuck in those positions of having 2 6-footers on the court when everybody was bigger. So you get a little bit more size. Mark is going to be a really good player for them. He's ranked in most people's top 10 players in the transfer portal. So it was a good get for Texas to pull him out. Can score on both ends. Not a great jump shooter yet. He'll be working on that in the offseason, I'm sure, but can play defense, can bring a lot of energy and athleticism on both sides of the court, attacks the basket well, which one of the problems they had last year was their guards did not necessarily attack the basket very well. So if you can't shoot a 3, you have to drive, you have to get in fouls, you have to be able to go attack. He can do that as well. If you look at Julian Larry, he's going to be a guy who shot 46% from 3, didn't take a lot. Jason Kidd shot about 37%. Both those guys need to pull up how many threes they're taking. If those guys can be 3-point shooters, they will see the court more and more, especially Jason Kent. He's a good rebounder for being 6'8". Can go inside and get those. But if he can hit threes and spread the court, it'll be really good. I did see a couple people mentioning they did lose the commitment of Cam Scott as a 4-star shooting guard. They let him out of his letter of intent this weekend. It's unfortunate. It is one of those things, I believe, that he saw that his path to the court was going to be a lot longer journey than maybe he thought it was going to be. With Trey Johnson coming in and most likely playing that shooting guard position for Texas next season, that means you're going to be behind him. Then you also have Kendall Weaver. I think Kendall Weaver's emergence maybe put a damper on him as well, that he thought, it'll be Trey and me, and we'll be the 2 shooting guards. We can play small forward. But I think once he saw that Kendall Weaver was going to be in that rotation, maybe he realized his path was going to be a little bit harder to get into. I'll say he's one of those guys that it's not necessarily done for him. He may transfer back to Texas at some point, depending on where he goes and how that goes. He may go earn himself some playing time somewhere else and then come back to Texas. I don't know if this one's quite the same. Last season, you had Ron Holland and A.J. Johnson. They both just didn't want to go to college. They wanted more money, and they both took the path away from college. This one seems as if he's going to stay in college, but probably just saw that the path to shooting guard. And if you don't play your freshman season, you go on. Chris Johnson's already transferred out. A lot of these guys just want to see the court more. And Rodney Terry has shown he's going to play a really pretty tight 8-man rotation, maybe 9 if he gets enough guys going, but he really wants to play about an 8-man rotation. And so if you realize you're not in that 8 men, you're probably not going to see the court a whole lot. You may want to transfer somewhere else, get some playing time for a season or 2, and then you can go find where you want to be after that.
That's a good point. And all these guys are 5th-year seniors too. So you got veteran experience. I'm sure that's something that was a priority for Coach Terry bringing these guys in. So that's part of it. And they all have Texas ties. I believe Julian Larry is a Frisco native. Jason Kent was actually born in Austin, even though he is an Illinois native in the Chicago area. He was born in Austin. And Tremont Mark, of course, as you brought up, had the U of H tie where he began his career at U of H. So big day for Rodney Terry. But like you said, the probably the crown jewel of this group is Tremont Mark, because he's a guy that can score for you and projects to be a starter. Jason Kent, rotational player. Looks like Julian Larry could be a nice role player for you.
Yeah, and I mean it's gonna depend too on if Tyrese Hunter comes back and if Donovan Mitchell comes back, because those 2 guys are going to be if they come back, well, then they're pretty much shoehorned into probably starting lineup. So it depends where you push. It also depends on who they bring in as a big into this lineup, because you've played Mitchell around at 4 and 3, and you don't know where he fits. You don't really have a big anymore. You have Ked and Shedrick on this team. Zarek and Yema is on the team, but you don't really want him in your starting lineup. So you'd like to bring in another starter, see if Shedrick's going to be the guy this year or not. But you'd like to bring in at least one more big, maybe two, in the transfer portal. Nick Cody also coming in is 6'9" power forward, may get into that rotation in the power forward spot as well. But you'd like to get at least one more big for sure for this Texas team in the transfer portal. But we'll see. Rodney Terry seems to be doing what he wants to do right now. So if he can continue it and maybe bring in one more big, I think you feel pretty good about it. And then it's just you want to figure out what's happening with Mitchell and Hunter. And do you need to replace them, or do you already have guys replacing them? Who do you want to pull up then?
Yeah, Tyrese Hunter decision, whatever, is going to be big for the Longhorns. All right, good stuff there from my man Patrick. We come back. We'll go behind the burnt orange curtain. Lots of news, notes, and nuggets from the second scrimmage of the spring, the last one right before the spring game. We'll discuss them on the other side right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn Rod Davis coming back on the horn. All right, let's get to it. Texas spring football. They had their second scrimmage of Texas spring football, the last one right before the spring game. Everybody's really excited about the spring game coming up this weekend. So let's get to some of these. We got some great sources here. Eric Nylene over at Inside Texas. He claimed that Malik Muhammad had basically was the best player on the field during Texas's scrimmage that they had this past weekend. That also is something that aligns with my man Chip Brown's report over at Horns 24/7 that Malik Muhammad had an interception in that scrimmage this past weekend too. Glad to hear about the secondary. Patrick, remember last week I said I'm not hearing enough positive stuff about the secondary. A lot of reports about D-line and O-line and wide receivers, but I'm not hearing enough about the secondary. I'm starting to hear a lot about the secondary now, not only from Sark, but in some of these reports. My man Chip Brown says also that Jalen Gilbo stepped up and had an impressive day during the scrimmage. And if that's the case, that allows them to have a lot of flexibility what they do with a guy like Jahdae Barron. Also, Gavin Holmes. Report here from Chip Brown says that he is getting a lot of number one reps at the other corner opposite Malik Muhammad, which means he's pushing Terrence Brooks. And that's a good thing, too, because maybe you believe you got 3 starting cornerbacks. Hell, with Jahdae Barron, potentially you got 4. But that's a guy you can cross-train at nickel with Jalen Gilbo. Also, this report, too, from my man Chip Brown says that Kobe Black actually made some plays, a couple pass breakups, working with the number 2s against the number 1s. That's how they worked. They worked 1s versus 2s. I'm not sure if there were any reports about them going 1s on 1s, which they describe as good on good. But the defense, at least based on some of these reports, defense had a really, really impressive day from the back 7. If you look at the secondary and look at the linebacking cores and in coverage, that group really had an impressive day. And a lot of the reports from, like I said, Eric McLean, Chip Brown, was that the DBs looked really, really good. So secondary looks like they were making some plays in that scrimmage, and they're going up against a really talented wide receiver group. Hell, last year they were going up against a really talented wide receiver group. So I'm glad to hear about the DB stepping up. If they can play more tight man coverage, which they want to do, Patrick, and play more, it doesn't say whether they're playing more press man, but based on last year's last 3 games, they were playing more press man coverage, making things tough on the wide receivers, rerouting them, just destroying the timing or throwing off the timing of the routes, and hopefully theoretically, that allows you to get to the quarterback because he's got to hold on to the ball just a little bit longer to try to make more accurate throws downfield.
Yeah, especially against quarterbacks who are not more veteran quarterbacks, younger quarterbacks and guys that maybe don't make the reads the best always. Well, you'll be able to get them a lot more if you take them off of schedule and you take them out of their rhythm. It was funny. I did see a Malik Muhammad tweet over the weekend, and I thought of you first. It's good to see. It's good to hear. It's good to hear that there's some good reports about the DBs out there. We've heard enough good reports about the wide receivers that it doesn't feel like it is anything negative about the wide receivers. It is just you're going up in a room now where you maybe lost some of those battles early, and you want to get some of your pride back. So they're coming back and making some good rebounding for the DBs in the second half of this spring training. It'll be fun to watch them on Saturday at this orange and white game as well.
And this is something else too. And I look for themes, Patrick. Like I want to hear like the same themes throughout spring. Like I want to hear the same guys are stepping up because to me that means that they're earning trust with the coaches, separating and elevating from the rest of the roster.
And what's one of the most important things in sports, just overall in any sport? Consistency.
Exactly. And they're earning trust with consistency. Thank you very much. Right. And I'm hearing, like, based on some of these practice reports, Jaden Blue had a really good scrimmage. And that's another name, right? We've been hearing more and more. Jaden Blue playing well. Yeah. Apparently, this report from my man Chip Brown says that Jaden Blue and Trey Wisner in Saturday's scrimmage, that they also led a rushing attack, and they looked really, really good. So Trey Wise was another name, hearing more and more. The Malik Muhammad name, I like that. The Jalen Gilbo name in the secondary, I like hearing that more and more, and I think that those are consistent themes. Here is one that's consistent too, and my man Chip Brown points this out in his reports, that the defense had an impressive day in the defense, and even Sark said the same thing about their first scrimmage. He said the same exact thing. He said the defense won most of the scrimmage, but in some of the situational drills, red zone, short yardage, that the offense actually stepped up and run that. And those are at the end of practice, because Sark likes to build, like your Smooth Soul Monday, he likes to build practice to a crescendo, right? Because basically the end of practice is the fourth quarter. So let's all of our tough stuff where you need to focus, and I need you to be at your best. I need you to, obviously making crucial plays in critical moments. Those critical moments are money downs, third downs, short yardage, red zone. And he puts that at the end of practice. And he said the offense won that portion of practice. They won the red zone again. And that's good. Why? Because Texas last year was terrible in the red zone. 120th in the country in touchdown percentage in the red zone. And I go back to my theory remains the same, Patrick, that Sark throughout practice, the defense should be ahead of the offense, because the offense, it kind of makes sense because they're getting continuity and chemistry with the new wide receivers. So that group is relatively new. And early on, and Sark said the defense was winning spring, if you will. And then the offense started to get the running game going. And once started to get the running game going, offense started to win more than their fair share. But they had a tough time getting the running game going early. Makes sense. You had lost Jonathan Brooks. All the losses on offense, it makes sure they will start a little clunky. No Jonathan Brooks. You lost one of your tackles. You lost 3 wide receivers. You lost your tight end. All right, a lot of new on that offense. So they started to find their groove. But where they've been money all spring is in the red zone. Why? Because if there was anything Sark focused on in the offseason, if there was anything he was obsessed with in the offseason, it was red zone. Because what lost him potentially a shot at winning a national title or playing for a national title? What's lost him a shot at being having an undefeated regular season? Red zone.
Yep.
Red zone, man. Red zone versus Oklahoma, red zone versus Washington. So I think the reason they're so good in the red zone, because he's got a bag of tricks he's using for the red zone, which he's been working on all offseason.
Oh, I'm sure he would talk to Sean McVay came into town for the coaches conference. I'm sure he called up Kyle Shanahan. He gave enough time after that Super Bowl, called him up and said, "Hey, by the way, how do you score in the red zone? Because I'm having some problems." I'm sure he called everyone he could call and tried to brainstorm some ideas and sat down. Him and Jeff Banks have a good relationship. I'm sure they sat and watched film all off season long, trying to figure out Coach Flood, trying to figure out ways that they could improve that red zone offense. But when you're sitting on those plane flights for recruiting, what are you doing?
Hey,
we're looking at game film research. And we're doing right. Why did this not work? Which player was not doing the right thing? And what do we got to coach into these players to get that type of push on the offensive line and get the running backs that little bit more room? And it's not just red zone, it's short yardage. It's how many fourth downs. Sark had to stop going for it on fourth downs. He says he still believes in it. He wants to do it again this season, but they weren't able to execute on fourth downs. That plays into it. It's the same concept. It's high pressure, short yardage, defense piled in moments. They had not been able to execute in the red zone or on fourth down. Those are the types of plays they want to get better at this offseason. And I'm with you. I think Sark has been nonstop, let's use his word, obsessed with getting better in those plays.
Yeah. And it's like when Sark's offense is built for space and built to create space, and when it has to confine itself, red zone, when it has to play football in a phone booth, short yardage, as you talked about, that's when Sark's offense, it struggles, because I think philosophically it doesn't align with what the offense is built on, which is to create space and to maximize and weaponize space. So and this is the weird thing what we're talking about here. Essentially, Sark's offense hasn't been fully realized here at Texas, guys, because the deep ball, which is supposed to be a big part of Sark's offense, hasn't worked. And what did I say earlier? We're going to see that deep ball. Now, hopefully he doesn't force the deep ball, but they're working on it right now in spring. That's also one of the reports coming out. They're working on it, and they're trying to get the mechanics right, getting his feet planted so they can bring back the deep ball. Hell, you had two of the fastest wide receivers in the country last year and still couldn't complete the deep ball with any, regularity and consistency. And Sark has talked about it. It's a big part of his offense. He's had to curtail it. So that's number one. The red zone last year was terrible, 120th in touchdown percentage in the red zone. So that's why that wasn't fully realized too. And, you just kind of brought up another aspect. I mean, that's the short yardage, right? Sark wants to go for it on fourth down. He doesn't basically, if it's 4th and 2 or less, hell, maybe 4th and 3 or less, depending on who's in the backfield, Sark wants to go for it, depending on where they are on the field. But he can't do that, and he hasn't been able to do that because they haven't been effective and efficient in executing short yardage situations. So he's punted more than he wanted to punt. He's had Bert Arbin out there kicking more field goals than he would like, and they haven't had the deep ball. So the truth is, his offense hasn't been fully realized. It's amazing to think it could be a lot more lethal and prolific than it already has been.
It is. I'm curious, too, with the deep ball, if Sark has a little bit of emboldened confidence because of the headset communications, that he may be able to now look at the field and tell Quinn, here it is. This is hey, I know we call it on the field. Hey, hot route that guy and because look at the way they're set up. Do you see that to your left? That's downfield. That's downfield. Take it. So he may be a little bit more emboldened in not having to send Quinn out there every time saying this is the deep ball shot, throw it no matter what. And Quinn maybe not recognizing that was a bad play and he shouldn't do it. That he maybe feels a little bit better saying, I can now look out there, and if I see someone cheating over the wrong way or whatever, and we get up to the line quick enough, I have enough time to tell Quinn what to do and tell him, let's go. Let's take that shot right now.
Yeah, that's fair. As long as he doesn't force it. Like I said, now I'll give him credit too. Sark, he did not force it at the end of last year. He curtailed that behavior, and I think it helped the offense. But Coach Steven, sometimes Coach Steven wants to force that issue, man. Instead of taking what the defense is giving you, which is what Patrick is talking about, he wants to force the issue. No, the defense will eventually at one point give you the deep ball, but they can't defend everything. So take what they're giving you.
And Coach Steven had a bad habit of expecting the defense to change before they did. And he would build into a thing, and they just wouldn't change the defense because they knew what was coming. And Sark thought they should play into his hands, and they didn't. And then he would just, no matter what, go into phase 2, even though phase 1 was not complete.
I love the way you said it. Yeah, I agree. Like I said, he curtailed it.
Yeah.
But I think he's going to try to bring it back this year. The question is, will he force it or will he take it as it comes? Will he take it gradually as the defense is giving it to him? That'll be the question. That's the growth for Sark as a coach. All right, good discussion there. We come back. We got off the record. Off the record, I got a ton of random stories for off the record. We'll see which one of them I pick. We'll kind of spin the wheel of randomness right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers coming back on the horn. Hey, what's up, folks? Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers here. Let me tell you about Dr. Greg Eckert and his all-star team. I owe them a debt of gratitude, as you guys have probably heard. Had to miss a couple of days on the show, and it's all I missed, but I had to have a few wisdom teeth removed, actually all of them removed, and it was potentially a disastrous situation I was dealing with, and thanks to Dr. Greg Eckert and his great team, they saved me from that disaster. I went in for a checkup just to get my teeth cleaned, and they did the checkup and found that my wisdom teeth were growing in sideways. Had to do something about it immediately. And Dr. Eckert and his team, they acted swiftly, informed me and educated me about the entire process, about the entire procedure, made sure I was totally comfortable with everything, and then had the surgery, had the procedure. And I got to tell you guys, it was easy peasy. I was back at work within a couple of days. And thanks to Dr. Greg Eckert and his great team, my dental health has never been better. So I encourage you, no matter what it is, something as dire as having to have all your wisdom teeth removed like me, or something as simple as a cleaning or a checkup, you can trust Dr. Greg Eckert and his team. They are fantastic. And they can handle anything from general dentistry to teeth whitening, dentures, porcelain crowns, veneers, dental implants, full mouth reconstruction, even root canal therapy, whatever it takes to ensure you're getting the best quality dental care available. That's what Dr. Yu and Dr. Greg Eric and his team are all about. Yes, I call him Dr. Yu. A lot of people do, but it's appropriate because he's all about you. He's all about making sure you are getting the best quality dental care available. He's always on the cutting edge of the technological advances in general dentistry. And because of that, right now, he can give you a brand new smile in just one day, permanently secured to your dental implants. No time spent without teeth. You can complete your permanent smile. So you get temporary fixtures until then, and you'll smile again with confidence and eat freely without pain or discomfort. So this is a lifelike permanent solution. So if you've been told your teeth need to be replaced, don't freak out. Just call Dr. Eckert today and learn about this revolutionary alternative to dentures, a complimentary consultation, which means you got nothing to lose, but so much to gain because a confident smile can truly change your life. And Dr. Eckert wants to change your life for the better. 512-345-3166. That's 512-345-3166. Or visit dreckert.com, DRUECKERT.com. Okay, so this was an unlikely rescue at sea. The U.S. Navy and Coast Guard apparently rescued three men who were stranded on a tiny island south of Guam. They spent a week there stranded. The men, all in their 40s, set sail for Palawat Atoll, Micronesia, on March 31st in a small, open 20-foot skiff powered by an outboard motor, according to a news release from the Coast Guard forces at Micronesia. A week later, on April 6th, a relative reported her three uncles had not returned, and apparently this was approximately 115 miles northwest of Palawat Atoll, which is a part of the Federated States of Micronesia. So a low coral island apparently is where these guys end up being shipwrecked on, and it had palm trees and shrubs, just 2.5 miles long and 1 3 4 miles wide. That's where they ended up. And they had apparently the area that they had searched, or they were searching for these guys, was 78,800 square miles of the South Pacific. So these guys were on an island that was like 2.5 miles long and 1 3/4 miles wide, and they were looking over 78,800 square miles of the South Pacific for these guys. And here's how they found them. Crazy. They were found. The Poseidon crew found the three on a Sunday, thanks to messages. How about this? That the guys spelled out. They spelled out the word help in a remarkable testament to their will to be found. The mariners spelled out help on the beach using palm leaves. And this act of ingenuity was pivotal in guiding rescue efforts directly to the location when the signal help that was spelled out in palm leaves was noticed from the sky during the search.
So basically,
isn't that crazy? It actually worked.
They did the cartoon thing and it worked.
They did the cartoon thing, dude. That is exactly what they did. They spelled out help like on the beach there, and somebody flew by and was like, "That's weird. What are the odds of that being just some natural occurrence? That's not that." And they went down and found them. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, that is that's. I feel it'd be
Wow.
weird if it depends on like what country you're in when you get lost in what area. That if I wrote help on the beach, but I was in a place that didn't speak English, it would mean nothing.
That's fair. That's a great point. They still should be able to recognize. Like I would recognize. That's a great point. That is really true. I think I'd be able to recognize that it's just a language period there.
I think you would.
Right?
I think
hope,
you could.
Even
tell.
if I don't know the language, I'm like, that's intelligent life down there.
Yeah, they're
weird. But you're right. I don't know. That's a great point. I don't know. I hope that would be the case. But there you go. That would really suck if you just people would just like they don't speak that language.
Yeah, they're just like, I don't know.
Out.
Someone's wrote some gibberish down there.
Damn kids. There you go, man. That's these guys actually say their lives were saved. They were stranded on a deserted island, and they wrote out help in palm leaves, and it actually worked. There you go. All right, that's the miracle for Off the Record. We come back, we'll get into the NBA postseason, the playoffs, and the play-ins. We'll discuss them both. Also, we'll have Rod's rant of the day, which is also NBA related. There are some NFL, well, at least some Cowboys news, notes, and nuggets I want to get into on the other side. We'll do all that and more right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers coming back on the horn. Folks, Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers here. Austin is a great city, even with the traffic. It's still one of the best cities in America. That's why everybody keeps moving here, making the traffic even worse. But as our city continues to grow and thrive, so do our friends over at Ironworkers Local Union 482. One of the reasons that Austin is such a great city is because people can find jobs here. They can find work here. And my friends over at Ironworkers Local 482 right now, they're offering a great opportunity for you to come work for this prestigious organization. They're hiring over 3,000 people. And what you may not know about our friends at Ironworkers Local 482 is that many of the iconic landmarks that we see in the city that make Austin so unique were actually built and constructed by the skilled craftsmanship of Ironworkers Local 482, like DKR Stadium and the Pennybacker Bridge. And right now they're working on another big project right here in Central Texas, and they're hiring over 3,000 people to complete this project. And they're offering competitive wages, competitive benefits, a pension plan. They even offer training for unskilled labor through their apprenticeship program. So what are you waiting for? You can become a member of Ironworkers Local 482, whether it be because you're looking for an exciting employment opportunity, or maybe you want a refreshing career change, or maybe you want a new challenge, or maybe you want to feel valued by your employer. You can become a valued member of Ironworkers Local 482 and maximize your potential today by going online and applying at ironworkers482.org. That's ironworkers482.org. Mm, mm, mm. Welcome back to the Rodcast. It is a Smooth Soul Monday edition of the Rodcast. That's when Patrick, the Idealionaire, my co-host, comes up with the musically themed days of the week, of course. But Smooth Soul Monday is when he's trying to transition you from the relaxing, I'm sure enjoyable weekend to the sometimes rough and busy work week. He wants to make sure that transition for you is as smooth as possible. So he does it with the Smooth Soul Mondays, which we all appreciate. Also, we appreciate his big fat poll of the day, for Patrick today. Great conversation starter. It was simply, which one of the Texas NBA teams do you think will win their next championship first? Who's gonna win the next championship first? Will it be the Spurs? Will it be the Mavs or the Rockets? It's a good cover. Honestly, like I said, I think you can make a case for the Spurs. You can make a good case for either one, but the Spurs and the Mavs, you can. I don't know if there is a better case for either one. Just depends on which side you want to take. I take the Mavs. I think the Mavs got their 1 and they got their 2. And you just need a coach, which hell in the NBA, I believe the average coaching stint in the NBA now has got to be like 3 years on average. I mean, just fire coaches like that. I mean, after one season, they don't really care in the NBA.
No, I'm surprised Jason Kidd stayed on this season as one of the coaches. It would be if you can't really make any other changes this offseason. You've leveraged all your picks for the Mavs. That would be one that would not surprise me. Ime looks good for the Houston. Popovich is Popovich. He's not going to, he picks when he moves on.
Exactly. So I just think they're closer just because they got their 1 and their 2. That's hard to do, to get the 1 and 2. You got Luka, generational talent. You got Kyrie, one of the most skilled players in NBA history. So I'll just quote KD there. So you got that. And the Spurs don't have a 2. They got Wemby, generational talent. They got him, and they got Papa, head coach. I think it's going to be tougher to find that 2, just because you want to pair somebody up who also complements Wemby's skill set. And that is, hell, we're still figuring out exactly what Wemby is, because we've never seen anything like him before. And then for Houston, I like Ime Udoka, but I don't think they have a generational talent there. And I don't necessarily think, so they may have 2 and a 3, but you don't have a generational talent necessarily.
Yeah.
You got really good players.
If Jalen Green starts to put it together more and more, gets more of that consistency under Ime Udoka, he looked way better in the second half of the season, but he has just not been consistent. If he becomes a star player, which is what they were hoping for, then that opens it up. And then Jabari Smith, and then Tari Eason, Cam Whitmore, Alperen Şengün. There's a lot of talent on that team. I will bring something up about Smooth Soul Monday, just because I love this song that I played right there. Has my favorite twist in a song ever, and it's just amazing to me every time I listen to that song. In the second verse, because the whole verse, the song's called "Overdose of Joy," but you feel like it's kind of like maybe it's a bit of they're just kind of, maybe it doesn't seem like it's dead on that he's actually overdosing. And then the second verse.
Hold up. What?
The song's called "Overdose of Joy," and it's all just happy. You heard how sweet and nice it was. And the second verse, he's singing, and then he's like, he woke up and he's like, I could feel the presence of my lady in the room. And I was like, hey, baby, you ready for more? And then the line he sings next is, the doctors want to keep you for tests.
Wow.
And it's the most abrupt line in a song that I think I've ever heard, where he just sings it the same as every other line.
Still with the cheery beat and everything?
Yes, it doesn't change.
They don't change the beat?
No, he's just like, oh, by the way, you're in a hospital bed.
You've been resuscitated.
You actually overdosed.
Wow. It's about an actual overdose.
I guess it is.
And I guess that's why the first part of it, like you said, it is joyous, because you're still high.
It feels like a guy who just did not grasp the fact that doctor's like, this is very serious. You need to change your lifestyle. And he's like, nah, I'm doing good. This is fun. The whole song feels like it's just the line where he's like, he goes, are you here for more? And the next line is, they want to keep you for tests. Is a crazy line in a love song.
Now I got to hear how he transitions into that within the lyrics.
He literally says the next line is, they want to keep you for tests, but he just sings it the same way. If you're not paying attention, you don't catch it. It's just M. Night Shyamalan level twist of women just not being
Now
into
it's a
it.
creepy song.
It's
Now the song
hilarious.
is really creepy.
I love it. It's
That is extremely creepy. I don't think I realized that actually. I know. I don't think I did. I did not realize that.
it's great.
I
It's
thought.
awesome.
And you said Love Overdose is the name
It's
of it?
Overdose of Joy.
Overdose of Joy. Overdose of Joy. Yeah. Wow, that's dark, man. And what's the name of this group? What's
It's
this group?
Eugene Record. He was one of the Shy Lights.
Okay, Eugene. I'm sure is that his only hit, Eugene?
I mean, I don't even know how big of a hit this was, but yeah, it's Eugene Record's biggest
That's
song.
what's the most recognizable jam, the banger from Eugene. Yeah, Eugene, you went a little dark there, brother. I can see why people are not really into your vibe. I mean, come on, man. All right, I like that. There you go. You learned something new on the musically themed days of the week, especially on a Smooth Soul Monday. I appreciate that from Patrick. All right, so got the Big Fat Poll Day. Go check that out. 512-447-3776. We also get that posted on the Horn Twitter account. Also, we'll get your Horn headlines, the last one of the day, to get you updated and also get you educated on the big headlines of the day. We got a Rangers report, so we'll throw that in at the end of this segment. We'll get you a Rangers report. We'll go over the play-ins and the playoff matchups in the NBA because those have been set. And we'll if we got time for Rod's rant, we'll get it in. If not, we'll push it to next segment when we discuss some Dallas Cowboys news, notes, and nuggets. So we got everything for you. Got to jam a lot into the next hour. First, let Patrick do us a great service and hit us up with the Horn headlines, please.
All right, Horn headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. Texas baseball got a home run from D. Kennedy on Saturday in the ninth inning, and then rode an eight-run ninth inning on Sunday to get a much-needed series win over Houston, 2-1 after a slow start on Friday. They'll be back in action on Tuesday against UT Rio Grande Valley. And Texas softball swept their series against Baylor behind Reese Atwood's 10 RBIs. They'll face Kansas next weekend. In golf, Scotty Scheffler maintained his dominance of the game with a 4-stroke victory at the Masters. This is Scheffler's second Masters victory and his third tour win of the year. Scheffler now has a top 10 finish in 8 out of the 9 events he has played in this season. Texas men's basketball was busy yesterday, bringing in 3 transfers as they rebuild the roster for next season. Texas landed 2 players from Indiana State, forward Jason Kent, who averaged 13.5 points and 8.1 rebounds per game, and guard Julian Larry, who shot 46% from 3 last season. The Longhorns also grabbed 6'6" guard Tremont Mark from Arkansas, who is a dynamic player on both ends of the court. In the NBA, the playoff seeding and play tournament are set. The Mavericks finished with the 5 seed and will be taking on the Clippers next weekend, while the Thunder were able to take the number 1 seed in the West after failing to make the playoffs after losing to the Timberwolves in the play-in. The Rockets finished their season at 41-41, a marked improvement over their 22-60 season a year ago. And the Spurs finished at 22-60 for the second straight season in a row and will have the 5th best odds in the draft lottery. And in Major League Baseball, the Astros were able to take the series with the Rangers 2-1 after a disastrous start, giving up 12 runs in the first 6 innings. Altuve and Tucker both had multi-home run games, and the Astros were finally able to win their first series of the season. The Astros are back in action tonight facing the Braves, while the Rangers begin their series with the Tigers, with pregame beginning at 5 p.m. right here on the Horn, and that is your Horn headlines.
All right, thank you, Patrick, for the Horn headlines. We'll get to a Rangers report coming up a little bit later on, talk some more about their – I can't believe that in the 7 games the Astros and the Rangers have played now that the Astros have a 4-3 lead. That just doesn't make sense to me. But considering the way the Astros have played, as Patrick mentioned, it is their first series win. So we'll talk about the Rangers. And I got a nice stat about the Rangers. Just shows how promising the future is for the world champion Rangers. It gets even brighter potentially for a team that already won the World Series last season. But let's get to the NBA playoffs and the play-ins, because the NBA, I think, actually are going to get good ratings, great ratings potentially for the play-in games this season, because your play-in games, they are kind of the ideal situation for Adam Silver. This is why Adam Silver wanted to create the play-in opportunities, just in case your stars were on teams that were on the cusp of making the playoffs and didn't make the playoffs. The play-in would give them another chance to be able to make it, another opportunity to get a superstar or more superstars into the playoffs if they were on teams that were struggling or teams that were at the bottom of the standings. And this is the year where you got exactly that. Golden State at Sacramento is your 9-10 matchup. in the West. So you'll have lots of star power there with the Golden State Warriors, with Steph Curry and Klay Thompson and Draymond Green. Lakers at New Orleans in your 7-8 matchup. Plenty of star power there because you'll have Anthony Davis, you'll have LeBron James. You mentioned Zion as well as another star there, Patrick. Earlier we were talking about this matchup,
Yep.
and then even on the Eastern side, I know it's not as sexy on the East. I'm probably not as competitive, but Miami, you got Jimmy turns into Hemi Butler. You got Joel Embiid in Philadelphia in that 7-8 matchup, and the 9-10 matchup, Atlanta at Chicago. You got Trae Young. I don't know for Chicago if they have much. I mean, but Trae Young's considered a young star in the league. He's not a superstar, but he's a young star in the league. So at least you got star power in your play-ins, and I assume one or two of those stars will be advancing into the playoffs. That's ideally what Adam Silver wanted. He just wanted another chance, kind of a loophole that he could still get his stars into the playoffs, at least give them another chance in case they couldn't make it the traditional route.
Yeah, no, and I mean, if you look in the Western Conference, it would be a shame for any of those teams to not have a shot in the playoffs. To say that Sacramento and Golden State are basically both out, even though they're well above 500, that's difficult to say. So I like it there. In the East, it'd be fine if the 7 and 8 and the 9 and 10 seed didn't make the playoffs. They're under 500. You don't necessarily need them to be in there, but it will lead to some interesting matchups. There is the part in the Eastern Conference where it is really important to get that 7 seed because your 8 seed, you are playing the Boston Celtics, who have been dominant. You don't want to run into them in the first round of the playoffs. If you can make that wait a little bit, you'd much rather go up against a Knicks team that's a little beat up right now. Julius Randle's not coming back, I don't believe. And, OG Anunoby's had issues with injuries so far this season. So they're a good team still, but have some injury problems. Maybe a little bit better shot to go in there and upset the number 2 seed than the number 1 seed. But in the Western Conference, I mean, when you look at that, you may actually want to play the 1 seed more than you want to play the 2 seed, which will be interesting to see. There's a chance that the Lakers, I don't think that New Orleans does this. I don't think New Orleans tries to play their fate. I think they just try and go out there and win a game. But knowing LeBron, what he tries to do sometimes, you could see LeBron say, I don't want to play the Nuggets. I'd rather play OKC, which OKC is a really good team. I don't know if that's a great idea either, but you got to play one of them. I will go ahead and kind of sandbag this first game. Don't need to win it. We'll play a second game. We feel we can beat the Warriors or Sacramento in game 2. Then we go on and play the 1 seed in the OKC. We don't have to meet Denver in the first round. It's a possibility that they try this. I think LeBron's pretty much one of the only guys who has that personality to maybe try and pull something like that off. But that'll be interesting. But it's you get the young versus the old. New Orleans is more the new blood. Lakers with AD and LeBron, you get that trade that brought them Brandon Ingram, who's been a really good player for them. It let them get Zion Williamson in the draft. Some big plays right there. Some big players that you're going to talk about in that matchup. Zion Williamson, to see if he shows up where he kind of disappeared in that big in-season tournament game earlier in the season. Will he be able to show up? And then looking over at Sacramento and Golden State, Sacramento's kind of, it feels like maybe Mike Brown's not the guy to get him over the hump. He got him to where they needed to be, but they need to get a little bit better. But, man, Golden State, as bad as they've looked at points this season, coming down the stretch, who do you trust in the playoffs to make big plays? Steph Curry and Golden State.
Yep, that's Golden State's dangerous. And we have had a couple of 7 seeds make runs. Like Miami was a 7 seed and got to the finals. And didn't the Lakers get to the Western Conference Finals as a 7 seed?
Yeah, but that was
Denver
that was
swept.
one where that was when LA had been hurt for a lot of the season, and then
they got everybody
and they got back everybody back. They've been a little bit healthier this season and just not as good.
Yeah. So they play-ins should be entertaining at least. And if you're looking at the overall Eastern Conference and Western Conference playoffs, in the East, because we still don't know who the 7 and 8 seeds are for your 1 and 2 seeds. Boston's your 1 seed, Knicks are your 2 seed, but we got the 3 and the 6 matchup, the Bucks versus the Pacers in your 3-6 matchups, and the Cavs versus the Magic. That'll be in your 4-5 matchup in the East, and in the West, you have obviously Denver and the Timberwolves, right? Are your 2 top? No, your 2 top seeds. No, it's
the Thunder,
Denver
And the Thunder, the Timberwolves will be your third
Denver
seed.
and the Thunder, excuse me, are your 1 and 2 seeds.
Yes.
So still waiting on who's going to end up playing them for the 7 and the 8 seed. But in the West, you do have, of course, the Mavs playing the Clippers. That's probably the most compelling matchup in the West. And the other matchup in the Western Conference, you'll have the Minnesota Timberwolves at the Phoenix Suns, which also could be compelling because Phoenix could have Durant and Booker can go off at any time, but Minnesota has been building, and they do kind of feel like young versus old too. Even though Phoenix was a young squad, but now they don't feel like a young squad anymore. It's quickly how quickly you can age in the NBA. It's strange.
Yeah, I mean, it's
like
funny.
Now that's considered an aging. That's an older squad now.
Yeah, when you trade youth for age, you will get old really quick.
Yeah, they got
but
old
I mean,
fast.
This is two big threes going at each other. They don't play the same positions, but there's a big three in Karl Anthony Towns, Anthony Edwards, and Rudy Gobert is your big three in Minnesota. Your big three in Phoenix is Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal, and of course Devin Booker. So you have two big threes that they feel are going to be going against each other. I just don't know if there's enough other pieces on the Suns. They just re-signed Grayson Allen right now, like a couple minutes ago, to a new contract. So he'll be with the team. You have Eric Gordon's on that team as well. So there's some other talent on there. They can score, but they just don't necessarily have the defense that you need. And Minnesota has defense and offense. It feels like this should be a pretty lopsided series. But at the same point, anything can happen in the playoffs. Karl Anthony Towns has been known to disappear at points. This will be a big series for him coming back from injury if he can step it up.
Yeah, I think this could be a big year for Minnesota to see if they can make a run.
Well, and if you saw,
do have the talent for it.
We know that Alex Rodriguez was supposed to be part of an ownership group buying the Minnesota Timberwolves, and that deal pretty much fell through because Minnesota was achieving, and part of what the deal was going to go through with is they basically wanted to cut payroll. They didn't want to have a big payroll in Minnesota, and Glenn Taylor, who has been consistently not a great owner in Minnesota, basically said, I don't want to hamstring our team that we're finally doing all these things we want to be doing. Yeah. And now you say you want to cut the payroll and basically get rid of one or two of these guys to keep the payroll down. Like, you're going to take it away as soon as these fans just got a team. You want to kill it because I sell the team. So apparently that's basically killed the deal for that. But that's an interesting thing to see that they're feeling good right now. And you're going to have to pay Anthony Edwards here in a couple of years. And he knows that, but he may go try and find another suitor for the Timberwolves who wants to buy a winning team and not just buy a team.
Anthony Edwards has got that kind of talent. We talk about guys who are American-born superstars who can win an MVP because it's been a while in the NBA. Like there's a run of the obviously got foreign players who are winning the MVP year in and year out. It's probably going to happen again this season. He's on that short list of guys who could do it if he takes another step because he's got some spectacular
he's got to get that consistency up. But he is really, really good.
Dude, he's fun to watch.
He had that dunk on John Collins earlier this year.
Oh, soul snatching.
Oh, I still feel bad for John Collins about it.
Exactly. Everybody does. Everybody now is like, man, I just feel bad for that. I hope he doesn't retire or something. But you know what I mean? Getting bullied on social media because of that. That is crazy. Okay. I will push Rod's rant. Let's get to the Rangers report here, and we'll make that a quick one, and we'll push Rod's rant to next segment. Let's do our Rangers report right now.
The Rangers report is brought to you by Texas Truck and Trailer.
All right, there you go. Time for our Rangers report. I found a couple of really cool stats about the Rangers. And I know Rangers fans are a little upset because they lost that series to the Astros. I don't know how it happened either. I don't know because the Astros are not playing good baseball. And Patrick remarked it was their first series win of the season, but it's a rivalry. So of course, there are a lot of tension in that rivalry. Anything could happen. Jose Altuve, he had 2 home runs in their last win over the Rangers. Yeah. Altuve versus the Rangers. I'll just throw this out there. And because this comes from Jared Sandler too. So it comes from a Rangers play-by-play guy. So I didn't just throw it out there. But Altuve versus Texas last 17 games, 9 home runs, 13 RBIs, 6 doubles, hitting .361. That's crazy. Like Altuve comes to play when he's playing against the Texas Rangers. So they fell to the Astros 8-5 in that last game, and Astros now take a 4-3 lead in the series in the 7 games they've played. But how about this for the Rangers, kind of show really how promising the future for the Rangers is. And the Rangers, they're a better team than the Astros right now, and they've proven that. So I'm not bragging about the Astros. I was just talking about the series. But how about this? They had Cole Winn. He got called up from Round Rock and made his Major League Baseball debut after the Astros took that lead, and they put him in there. And he actually pitched well, but he is the fourth Ranger to make their Major League Baseball debut this season, which is just more than 2 weeks old. The season is. Wyatt Langford was obviously the first on opening day, followed by Foscue on April 5th and Davis Wenzel last week. That is really promising. I mean, you talking about? I mean, that's a pretty big number for a team that just came off a World Series win, and they're already getting a lot of their young talent already getting them work early on this season. The Rangers now have had their first, second, third, and fourth round picks from 2018 make the majors. It's the first time the Rangers' top 4 picks have made the majors since the 1987 draft, when the Rangers' first 9 picks all made the big show. Think about that.
That's crazy.
Talking about hitting, and you were just talking about in the NBA, like you got to hit on them picks.
You got to hit.
That's why the Rangers' future is so promising. That's why they were ahead of schedule and won the World Series last year. They've been hitting on these picks, man.
Yeah.
And
they've been developing them quickly. In fact, that's the way to do it. There is a couple of injury notes you can bring in. The Rangers were looking pretty good. Kumar Rocker's getting better. One of their picks recently, Jacob deGrom, is on schedule in his rehab. Max Scherzer is getting closer to his return in his rehab. Nathaniel Lowe doing some rehab assignments too. Another one coming back. But they did suffer a couple injuries over the weekend. Cody Bradford went on the 15-day IL with lower back soreness. And then Brock Burke, he allowed 4 earned runs against the Astros in a game and then broke his non-throwing hand punching the wall after that and coming out of the game. So he is he is set on the IL right now. Not a great move by that to punch.
No, that's a double L. That's a double L.
Yeah, it's not good.
You took the double L there, man.
That's but they have a lot of guys progressing in the right direction on their injured list, which is, a team that already looks pretty good. You got some young people, some young talent coming up. But yeah, they do have they've got some players to come back. And when that rotation, if you get DeGrom and Scherzer to come back into that rotation, I think that really starts to solidify them. And then you look at some of their young guys, they may start to try getting some starting pitching, try and maybe see if they go in the bullpen or not. But that'll be an interesting look to see where that rotation ends up around the All-Star break and coming out of it, how healthy they are and what they look for the second half of the season. That could be a really dangerous rotation, which you haven't said about the Rangers in a little while.
Yeah, you're right about that. And Bochy says he's not worried about the offense for the Rangers. He said they're just up and down, is what his quote say. He's not worried about it at all. He did say that he thinks that I think Marcus Semien hit that 3-run homer in the 9th. He said that might be kind of the spark that their offense is starting to turn around. They may be scoring some more runs in their series coming up versus at Detroit, I believe, is their next series for the Texas Rangers. So, all right, that's our Rangers report for now, and we'll be talking more Rangers. But for now, that is the end of our Rangers report.
The Rangers Report is brought to you by Texas Truck and Trailer, your premier truck accessory dealer.
All right, we come back. We'll get into Rod's rant of the day on the other side. It is my last case, the last time I'm going to make the case for Wemby to win Defensive Player of the Year. So last time I'll sit on the soapbox and make the case for Wemby for Defensive Player of the Year. After that, I'm done. I made the prediction he would do it, and I think now it's between him and Rudy Gobert, but it could go either way. So I'll talk about that on the other side. Also, some very strange Cowboys news on the other side. All of that and more right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Lohan. Rod Davis coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis and lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers. At the beginning of the season, I made the prediction, the Black Stradamus prediction, that Victor Wembanyama would win Defensive Player of the Year. I said, based on what I've seen, the research I've done, he'll walk into the NBA as one of the top 3 to 5 best defensive players in the league. And I said he'd win Defensive Player of the Year because of the highlights that he was going to have defensively. So that was more my case then, but now I think there's still a more substantive case for him to win Defensive Player of the Year, and it could go either way. It could go to Rudy Gobert, and you'd be totally justified in giving it or voting for Rudy Gobert. But I also think you got a really good case in voting for Wemby. He ranks 3rd right now in defensive estimated plus minus. He leads the NBA in total blocks per game, and block rate by significant margins. If you look at B-Ball Index, he is only, a courtesy of B-Ball Index, he has only contested 41% of opposing shots at the rim, and yet he is the NBA blocks leader. You look at Rudy Gobert. Rudy Gobert is contesting over close to 50%, about 50% of opposing shots at the rim. Chet Holmgren is around 57%. The contest rate of contesting opposing shots at the rim, and he's got 66 fewer blocks than Victor Wembanyama, just to give you a little bit of context on it. Also, I love this stat. Victor's blocks, they're just different than everybody else's blocks. His blocks are recovered more by the Spurs than most teams are. The Spurs recover 68% of Victor Wembanyama's blocks because it's interesting because he doesn't have to swat, balls away. And he's not having to leap and leave his feet. A lot of the times, sometimes he can just kind of block them by barely hopping. And he has the ability, when he blocks shots, sometimes he recovers them himself. They're more, I would say, because he doesn't have to swat them away. They're more often recovered by the Spurs than the opposing team. Minnesota recovers around 58% of Rudy Gobert's blocks. So that's a random kind of freaky thing to keep up with Victor Wembanyama. Also, the Spurs are 22nd in defensive rating overall as a team. But when Wemby's on the court, that defensive rating, it becomes a top 5 defensive rating in the NBA. So with Wemby on the court, they're a top 5 defense, and with him off the court, they dropped to 22nd in the NBA, a difference of 7.3 points per 100 possessions, which is, according to Cleaning the Glass, no player who's logged at least 1,000 minutes has had a more positive impact on their team's defensive rating than Victor Wembanyama. His 3.5 deflections per 36 minutes ranks 2nd among all centers. So he actually does a great job of deflecting. It's kind of with the blocks thing. Instead of having to block stuff, he kind of just deflects them and tips them, and then they can recover it. But he's got 3.5 deflections per 36 minutes. 2nd among all centers. Rudy Gobert is at 1.7 deflections per 36 minutes. And Rudy Gobert by himself also is a really great defensive player, so taking nothing away from that. And the T-Wolves have won 55 games, are the 3 seed, so that is a great case. But I like the Wemby case because I think if you go look at some of the things that he's doing defensively, we just haven't really seen a player achieve those things defensively because we haven't seen a guy with his unique skill set. But Rudy Gobert, I'm not taking anything away from him. The guy's a freak defensively. I just think maybe there's a bit of fatigue there just because we've already seen it. Wemby stuff is brand new, and some of the things he's doing are just, like I said, eye-poppingly unprecedented in the NBA.
Yeah.
And he's gotten a lot better toward the end of the season.
Second half of the season, he's a different player than the first half. There, he also suffered the injuries on the ankle where he was having multiple ankle injuries, and he was on a minutes restriction a lot earlier. They played him alongside a center for a long time in the season, which did not help him out defensively because it pulls him away from the basket. He still was okay, but it was a lot, when you're going up against a 6'9", 6'6" guy, you can block him, but that guy's going to try and drive on you over and over again and get you out and try and make you look like an idiot. He's did a pretty good job, but it also meant that if the guy passed the ball, he's 8 feet away from the basket, 10 feet away from the basket. can't necessarily get those blocks, can't get those numbers.
Yeah.
His numbers would have been more credible if he'd have been there in the 5 position all season long.
23, 12, 5, and 5 is what he averaged since the All-Star break. Since the All-Star break, which things start to, I don't know when they made those adjustments that you're talking about, Pat. You obviously know, you watch a lot of Spurs games, but he's averaging 23 points, 12 rebounds, 5 assists, and 5 blocks since the All-Star break. And he averaged 7 assists per game in that stretch to carry the, basically at the end of the season. In his last 7 games, he averaged 7 assists per game. So he definitely started to figure things out later on in the season, right when the Spurs shut him down. But yeah, man, I think he should win Defensive Player of the Year, but it's okay, because if he doesn't win it this year, he's probably going to set the record for most consecutive Defensive Player of the Year awards.
Very,
very.
very
I don't know
possibly.
what the record is, but what's the record? Probably 3 or 4.
Yeah,
I don't know how
yeah.
many.
I think it's 3.
Like
I think somebody did 3 before. I can't remember. We've looked it up before, and I can't remember off the top of my head, but I think it was 3.
Yeah, because that dude, man, he's doing some crazy stuff. So there you go. That's my last pitch for Wemby doing Defensive Player of the Year. We'll see how it all works out. We don't know when the awards will be announced, but I think they announced them almost piecemeal as the playoffs are going on.
Yeah, I believe last year was April 17th. I don't know. I have to look at what day the season ended, how many days after the season ended, but it was around this time last year when that was announced. They'll announce, I believe, all the finalists first, and then they will start naming them.
Okay, it's random Cowboys discussion here. So I don't know how real this report is. John Fossil was asked about it too, who's the special teams coach for the Cowboys. Micah Parsons, there's a report that Micah Parsons wants to return kicks for the Cowboys. And this is a weird thing. It was being discussed on a podcast John Fossil was on. He was on Ross Tucker's football podcast. And he was asked about the new kick return rules and putting Parsons back. He said, who would be great back there? He said, Micah. So he has lobbied me in the past to be the primary kickoff returner. I'm like, Micah, that's the question. You got to go. You got to go a little further up than me on that one. But would I love to see him back there? Absolutely. Because he would be fantastic. He would catch it and he'd run wild and he'd probably get incredible yards, but that ain't going to happen. I'm aware of that. If you want Micah to win like MVP one year, you got to do that. Remember when the Texans wanted to get J.J. Watt in the MVP conversation and he was in
they
his
started
prime,
throwing the ball?
And they put him on the goal line and they put him in the backfield and they put him at tight end. I'm not saying that you should do it, but if you want him to win MVP, and he can have the great season defensively like J.J. Watt. I think J.J. Watt that year won Defensive Player of the Year too. I think he was actually in the streak of winning consecutive Defensive Player of the Year awards. But you gotta add a little something to it. You gotta add a little mojo. You gotta add something to the resume to spice it up. Just saying. And the kickoff returns are a lot safer than they used to be. Remember, they used to be, hell no, I would never put my best players back there. Now, they're a lot safer. There's only so much damage they can do without a running start against a player like Micah Parsons. He can protect himself. I'm not saying they should do it, but I'm saying they could. Now it's more realistic than it's ever been.
Is Micah Parsons going to try and do everything on the field but defend the run? I'll do it all, man. All-time quarterback. I'll play both sides of quarterback. I'll do everything. Could you step back and not let a guy run past you every play? No. That's crazy. That's insanity. I'm gonna rush a quarterback every single play. If the running back gets by me, that's so be it. But I can do that too. Stop the run, man. You're getting gouged last year. Yeah, stop the run, and we can talk about the other fun stuff you got to do. But stop the run first. I know it's not only your job, but they're running at you now.
They're running at you now. They literally have decided you're the weakest link in the run game. Goodbye.
They know.
No, you're right about that. You're right. No, you're right. The other quick nugget here, Tyler Smith admitted that he's more comfortable at guard than tackle, which is some people taking this to believe that it's possible the Cowboys in the draft now will definitely zero in on a tackle, especially if he would like to or ideally be a guard. If that's the case. First of all, it makes him cheaper because tackles are more expensive. And then you can get cheaper talent in the draft and move him to guard. And if he's a guard, you're going to pay him in your second contract. You'd rather pay him like a guard than have to pay him like a tackle.
Yeah.
throwing it out there. So maybe that's one of the things people are throwing out there. All right, we'll come back. We'll get ready to wrap it up, put it in the oven. We'll play Who Said That on the other side, and then we'll let you know what's on tap for tomorrow, right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. He is the Idealionaire coming up with the musically themed days of the week. And today is a Smooth Soul Monday, meant to make it a smooth transition from the enjoyable, relaxing weekend to the hectic hustle and bustle of the work week. So we appreciate his energy, his efforts, and also his creativity. That's why we call him the Idealionaire. Also, go check out the Big Fat Poll today. It is actually up on the Twitter account. You can go check out at the Horn at the Horn ATX, at the Horn ATX in the Twitterverse. And you can go see the big fat poll today. Which Texas NBA team will win their next championship first? Mavericks, Rockets, or Spurs? That's up there for you. You can go check that out. Before we get out of here, though, we always like to play a game called Who Said That? Patrick plays a little bit of audio, then based on the context clues, or maybe just based on you recalling how the voice sounds, you are supposed to be able to diagnose and decipher who said that.
Next quarterback to win a Super Bowl that hasn't won yet.
I like Josh Allen a lot. I think he's, I'd pick Josh.
Josh?
Yeah. I like Josh a lot as a guy, as a leader. But, he's got to get past the Chiefs, and that's hard because Patrick's incredible in the way he leads that team.
Ooh, that's the GOAT. That's Tom Brady saying. That's an interesting question to ask Tom Brady. And that's an interesting answer from Tom Brady, too.
Yeah, that's
Josh Allen.
That's Tom Brady being Tom Brady, be like, I don't care about the team. It's quarterback. Tom Brady's like, I never cared about who was on my team. Just go out there and win games. Do you not see the Bills? Do not seem like they're on the. It seems like they're going the opposite direction right now.
Yeah, Joe Burrow, I probably would have went over.
I would go with Joe Burrow.
I
CJ Stroud's in that conversation now.
CJ Stroud's one now. Yeah. No, because Josh Allen, I think the window for the Bills is closing, but I would say that they've been right there on the cusp. Last year they were close to beating the Chiefs. They were close last year, and he had an opportunity to have a game-winning drive, and he couldn't put it together.
No, and I mean, if you look at, again, we talk about that 5-year window of coaching quarterback, it feels like they're like 4 years past that. I don't know how long it is, but it feels like it has been a while past that they have just been kind of stretching along. And this is the first time they really had to make some cuts.
I want to say it's like the 6th year
for
like Sean McDermott and Josh Allen together. So you're right. It's that window. It's a 5-year window. Yeah, they're way past that window, no question. All right, there you go. Good stuff from my man Patrick. Patrick, appreciate you as always. Tomorrow we'll be talking about the play-in games. A lot of detailed breakdown about the actual play-ins, because the play-in games for the NBA start up tomorrow. So we'll be discussing that. So thanks, my man Patrick, for all of his hard work. Thanks to you guys out there for listening. We appreciate all of your efforts. Remember, the revolution will not be televised. We're talking about it right here on the Rodcast. Everybody have a great night. We love you guys. We mean that. Take care of yourselves, but more importantly, take care of each other. Until next time, hook 'em and peace.